Alright, what is going on YouTube? It is the second Hidden Cup 4 show match that we're going to have today over here. It is once again Hidden Identities. So players that did not qualify to the main event of Hidden Cup 4 will be playing for $200 prize money over here. They get two nicknames that are both heroes in Age of Empires 2 scenarios. Babur and Kushluk will be the two players over here. We will be only seeing their identities after the end of this series. So just like you would actually see it in the Hidden Cup main event, you have two hidden identity players, they will fight a set, and when everything is said and done, we're going to have the identities revealed. So here are the home maps. We have a Quarry, Gold Rush, and Bypass for Babur. So he actually goes for two brand new maps over here. High Tide Bay Hideout will be Kushluk's home maps. Islands banned by Babur could be a clue versus Cross from Kushluk. Civilization-wise, we have Chinese, Aztec, global bans. Babur loses Lithuanians to a snipe, and Kushluk loses Malians to a snipe. That's an interesting snipe from Babur there. Italians, Vikings, Japanese, Huns, Britons, Mayans, Tatars, Teutons will be available for Babur, and Mongols, Persians, Ethiopians, Khmer, Franks, Slavs, Berbers, and Spanish will be available for Kushluk. So any player that actually played in the Hidden Cup qualifiers and at least got to the second round could be a possibility, although you kind of have to wonder if it is going to be some of the more renowned players being selected for this one, because if it's like a standard player that doesn't have anything stand out from him, then it's going to be really, really hard to identify. So really, we need something sort of either a special player, like let's say Lix, who is a lot more aggressive than the others. I don't think he's going to be involved in this, mainly because it would be too easy to guess. But I would also think that you probably want to involve some higher level players. So I would mainly be looking at players from mostly the decider round. Spoiler alert, this actually is going to contain spoilers over here. So in case you don't want to hear it, close your ears whatsoever, but this is going to have references. This entire set is going to have references to the qualifiers. So if you haven't seen a certain set, be aware that there could be spoilers in this one. So Lan, Max, Dark, Hard, Daniel, Badboy, Lix, and Slam are the players that played in the final round of qualifiers but didn't get into the main event. From the second round, I feel like players like Fire, Sito, Ruben Stock, Kaposh, Classic Pro, Miguel, I think are the candidates that could be a possibility for this one. But we are going to have a somewhat interesting Ethiopian pick here from Kushluk in red, and we're going to have Teal for Babur in Mayans. So the thing is that I casted so many qualifier sets that I completely forgot which players picked which civilizations on which maps and which colors they like. One thing I remember is that there isn't really a lot of players that actually like to play with the teal color. Like, Max is probably the most prominent of these players, but I don't think that he does that a lot in 1v1, so the colors aren't telling us anything. And also, the color is always the easiest one to fake, so that also is not really a strong clue for us. The Ethiopian pick on Arabia could actually be sort of a clue, but honestly, I don't think that it gives us any extra information that is decisive towards any players. So we'll have to puzzle it together throughout this entire series. So with that, we'll actually do a little bit of fast forwarding over here because these are recorded games. And we will have 4 on wood for both players, so double archer plays, no surprise about that over here. Screen is freezing. Babur is actually playing, look at this, Babur is playing this roleplay really well. Capital K and 1. I feel like whoever Babur is, based on this chat, I feel like that player actually really wants to impersonate someone. So he really isn't hiding, or he's actually trying to hide his identity as much as possible. Kushluk actually is writing in standard English, which pretty much seals the deal. It's probably not players like, well, I don't think we can exclude a lot of people, but probably we can exclude players like Bat, Koala, and CL immediately. The rest of the players should still be in here. But it's going to be interesting to see how Teal is trying to hide his identity. If he's messing around with a thing like that, you can really make a case for one of the higher level players being that. So the players that qualified for the main event will not be able to play in these. They will have to focus on the main event itself. Obviously, from prize money perspective, that also is much more beneficial for them. So this show match is great for those that didn't qualify, but for those that qualified, it's just much better to play the main event. And that's actually a pretty even trade of droshes over here. We had both players adding a 4th militia here, but even a man-at-arms upgrade kicks in for Kushluk, and that catches Babur off guard with what is 2 man-at-arms remaining. Not an awful lot, but it is enough to start harassing villagers over here and potentially open up the possibility of helping get your early archers, because that could be a thing. There is a hole. There is no hole here, interestingly. I thought there is a hole. So the range coming in here a little late for Babur compared to his opponent. Obviously, the Ethiopian extra resources upon hitting Feudal Age helps a lot. We also saw 2 sheep being lamed from Babur earlier, which is why he's already adding quite a lot of farms over here. All of those without horse color is going to hurt his eco, but at the end of the day, the extra sheep actually help Kushluk a lot more in terms of that, because I feel like Kushluk could very well afford horse color. By the way, one of the new features of Capture Age here is that you can actually set the color of each player, which is a very, very fancy thing. We'll be sticking with teal and red for most of this series, because I think that's actually pretty easy to distinguish on the minimap. Should be no problem for colorblind people either, which I'm trying to pay attention for as well. It seems like Kushluk is adding 1 more man-at-arms so that he can actually get through the walls a little easier. Feels a bit of like an overinvestment though, because at this stage those man-at-arms won't really be doing that much to you anymore when your opponent has archers to pick them off. The other man-at-arms were somewhat damaged as well, so I feel like that is a 5th man-at-arms here is sort of an overinvestment from Kushluk, if you ask me. Especially when you're up against a Mayan player that is gonna have cheap archers, you could get easily overrun by archers over here, and as you see that those man-at-arms aren't really doing much here. Obviously they help getting through these walls, but at the end of the day, you really wonder if adding 1 more man-at-arms here was worth it, especially considering that he opened 4 man-at-arms or 4 militias because of the opponent's rush. We have some idle time over here for Kushluk's TC, as eventually he's going to kill that sheep very far away from TC. That is definitely far from ideal. But other than that, Babur sending out some villagers to take the hunt. I like that move. He's going to compensate a little bit for his lost sheep, and you also have to consider that he's Mayans, so he's got a very, very efficient eco. He doesn't have to spend a lot of resources. Overall, there's a second range coming in here for Babur, and for Kushluk, we are gonna have... I will have to... Yeah, they actually changed the hotkeys for the POV switch in Capture Age, so I had to mess around with that for a moment. But as you see, one thing that's extremely important for Kushluk here, he doesn't know about this gold mine. If he knew about this gold mine, he would be hitting this one right away, but he doesn't know about it. And he doesn't want to commit to this crossing right now, but as I said, if he saw this gold mine, he would have pressured it a lot earlier. Now, the archer ranges are up, and that means that Babur is going to be able to hold that gold mine. Babur picking off the archers over here, nice micro from him. And the man-at-arms are all gone. Once again, I think that the 5th man-at-arms here was a bit of an overinvestment here from Kushluk. With that, Kushluk has a slightly less TC idle time overall, and Babur also has more village idle time, so it seems like Babur is definitely not one of the players that has a super, super clean feudal age. You see there is idols over here. To me, it's a signal that it's not a very, very macro-focused player. I know it's a small clue, but like the highest level of players that are super, super macro-focused would not have this much idle time in Feudal Age, even though there is obviously a lot of things to handle over here. With that being said, there's +1/+1 for Babur, only +1 attack for Kushluk, and now Kushluk is gonna get pushed really hard over here. He was 1 range the whole time, just adding range number 2, but Mayan cheap archers from double ranges is very, very scary to fight against, and you see that Babur is already gaining significant map control here, and he will soon start pushing the right side of Kushluk's base. Kushluk is actually going for some very, very ambitious walls over time over here. Overall, he didn't play with a lot of walls, as he goes for an early lumber camp replacement. That's interesting. To me, that feels like that's actually a very, very high level player. because that's not something that you see outside of the top 16, replacing lumber camps this early. In fact, many players that are outside of the top 16 don't even replace them even after Castle Age. So this to me actually feels like it's a player that puts a lot of emphasis on small details, and those are usually players in the top 16 because that's where small details start to matter in an increasing fashion. And indeed, the macro here was actually pretty outstanding from him. So 17 seconds idle time only, although he's underreacting this a little bit, so is Babur. The two patches of units just patch each other over here. The archers didn't fire on the villagers didn't run away in time. That being said, since Kushluk wasn't walled, the archers could definitely push this gold mine, and I don't know why they're not shooting villagers. It seems like Babur is probably too busy maybe fixing his eco whatsoever, because he isn't really focusing down villagers here easily. He could lay him a farm if he wanted to. Finally goes for the villagers, and it's actually very surprising that this is the first villager kill of the game, because we had seen some very, very aggressive plays overall from both players. It looks like we're gonna have Babur ready to go into Castle Age. Kushluk not very far away either, but his army numbers aren't convincing me. 42 villagers against 44, but oh my goodness, Kushluk just caused the GG. Kushluk just caused the GG. I guess the problem that he was facing is he understands that, look at this. He's got 6 archers against 5 archers, 4 skirms that do have +1/+1. He doesn't have +1 defense, and this gold mine is wide open. And the thing is that Kushluk actually tried playing this one super open and ended up losing pretty badly against that because well, Babur just overrun him with the cheaper Mayan archers, and that's a quite swift victory over here for our Tia player. We will actually go and take a look at the draft of the players. So we will have Mayans gone for Babur in a rather easy win, and Ethiopians will be gone for Kushluk to his final civ pick for here. Kushluk will have High Tides, Bay, and Hideout as his home maps. And Babur is going to have Quarry and Bypass. So basically we're going to see quite a lot of the new maps over here being played in this set. Obviously if we actually have these selected, but theoretically we have 3 out of the 5 in here in the new ones. And since Cup is not really a brand new map, you can safely say that, yeah, there is actually 4 completely new map scripts for the tournament. Out of that, 3 is actually in here. The only thing that's missing is the Mangrove Forest thingy, and I actually mentioned that in my map review video that I wouldn't be surprised to see that map just completely go unplayed in the tournament, because I just know players don't like that at all. So, with that, we will jump into game number 2 over here. Once again, we had a bit of a discussion. Give me 5 more minutes. He's typing gimme. Who are the players? Like, the first person that actually comes into my mind is Daniel. Because, the thing is that such a slang could be a clue towards players. Like, those players that have kind of a lower level of English don't go for slang like this. They actually don't know much. Like, it's hard to phrase this, but those that aren't speaking amazing English, they go for simple expressions, but they use them well. People that are like gimme are actually people that are pretty good in English. So red to me, based on that, it's a very, very small clue. But Daniel could be a reasonable candidate for this one. So with that, Kushluk will be playing red Persians on the left, and right side is going to be Italians for Babur in teal. The Lithuanians were sniped. One thing that is surprising, however, is that Kushluk actually had Mongols available, and he's not picking it here, which is sort of a shocker. Maybe he was expecting Babur to go for Italians, and because Babur goes for Italians, he felt like Italians sort of counterpick Mongols in a way. It's not really a hard counter, but that's something that always is worth looking at. I love the Italians pick here though, because it's likely that your opponent is gonna go for Mongols or potentially Persians. So some civilizations that either are cavalry focused or cavalry focused. And Italians with the Genoese crossbows could be a very, very good civilization against that. That being said, Babur has one of the most disgusting maps I've seen on Bay for a long time. It's a super duper mega wide open base with Obviously, the stone is always on the front, but the gold is a disaster. No secondary gold at the back. This is an absolute disaster map for Babur that could really justify a forward, to be honest. Because as we have Kushluk chasing down Babur's scout, Babur will try to take the hill here, and Kushluk disengages. So, Field Age coming in for us, standard fire galley play over here from Kushluk, and behind this one we're indeed going to have a range coming in fast. I feel like Babur's map is so bad that if he doesn't play land, he's going to lose. Because, yeah, he's got woodlands at the back, but I mean, he could be forced off from gold so easily. If Kushluk doesn't even need to make army. Let's say that Babur just mines gold and goes for standard galley rush. If Kushluk gets one sneaky villager in here, gets a tower up here, the stone and the gold are both denied at the same time, and Babur is in trouble because the other gold mine is also pretty bad. That being said, Feudal Age is in for both players. We have a double docks here for Kushluk, only a single dock for Babur, and he's not even focusing on the water, which to me signals that he's going to give up on water completely. I feel like with this map, you could really make a case for that. Maybe try to make a demo raft and try to snipe the opponent's fishing ships. That could make sense. Because you don't want to fall behind by free eco this early. Because if you lose your fishing eco like that, as he's going for a galley, a galley play here is a complete clue that he's just going to go for the fishing ship snipes. The thing is that you kind of have to move that galley around, and it's going to be a little bit tricky. Keeping that galley alive against two fire galleys and still killing fishing ships. You see that Kushluk already sees, hey, the water could be mine. So that means that he's already adding fishing ships over here. And he's also going for defensive building. That's the right thing to do. He sees, okay, I'm winning water. That means my opponent is going to start pushing me on land. Babur is going to have the HP advantage with that scout, as Kushluk tries to bring that scout into his base to get some help with the villagers. And we're going to have what appears to be ranges from Kushluk here, and ranges as well from Babur. I think in this case, I don't like that Kushluk is opening archers, because I think Kushluk might even see... Let's see. Kushluk doesn't see the range, but I think he can anticipate it. Because one thing that he can see is the gold mine. Your opponent is on gold but not making ships, which means he's making archers. And that means that you kind of have to go for your defensive skirmishers. I don't like that he's opening archers because he's going to fall behind in archer numbers. The reactions otherwise are nice. He's got a woodland at the back, the gold is at the back as well. These berries are a little bit exposed, so this is not an ideal wall for him. But with a couple of skirms, he will be able to hold this one, and he will be fully walled as well in a matter of moments. These are some ambitious walls here, and you could have made a case for walling here instead, because repairing these could be troublesome. As here come the galleys, and this is going to be a clutch part of the game from Babur. He needs to kill the fishing ships over here, otherwise his eco is going to be so bad compared to the opponent that he will just fall behind in Castlage time and get overrun by Persian knights. That being said, the galleys are actually being microed around quite nicely. Take down one fishing ship, two fishing ships already. But, as I said, I feel like this didn't do enough damage. Yeah, two fishing ships is two fishing ships, but now Kushluk has an ultimate control over the water, full of deep fish, and that means that he can just add two more fishing ships and still have the eco lead. Surprisingly though, Kushluk had a lot of TC idle time, so despite the fact that he has the fishing eco and his opponent does not, the villager count overall is dead even between the two players, and it is a life-saving thing for Babur right now, who might be thinking about using a cheaper Italian Castle Age to go for like a crossbowman plus siege play. That could be something to consider. Because even though your opponent is technically supposed to have a stronger eco, in reality, the cheaper Italian Castle Age could help immensely, as now he's moving out with the archers. Still no skirmishers from Kushluk over here. Babur sees the archers moving up. These archers do not have a single upgrade, neither are the ones from Babur, as a blacksmith is up. Just goes for fletching, will intercept that scout over there. Nice move from Kushluk to save it, even though it's very low HP. And now, indeed, Kushluk will start adding fishing eco, which means that his eco is going to just skyrocket over here. And now he's going for a blacksmith, and this is a little bit troublesome for him. That blacksmith will be quite late, considering that his opponent is already bringing up archers. And the thing is that if Kushluk is forced to run back into his base, Babur will just camp this out, and you see that, as I said, cheaper Italian Castle Age could help so much. You see why this map is so bad for Babur. These are some crazy walls, but he kind of has to make them. So far, both players are playing very, very standard, and the civilization, the map selections, none of these actually give a strong clue on who these players could be. The only clue that I could possibly get was from the language usage from Kushluk. I have a feeling it's Daniel, but it's like a very, very small clue. With that being said, we are gonna have Babur going up to Castle Age first, and the fishing eco needs some time to kick in. But here's the deal. Persian Knights will just absolutely wreck archers, so if Kushluk gets into Castle Age here, he's gonna be able to devastate his opponent's archers, but it seems like he's going to play double range, so he wants to continue with crossbows, which I think in this situation benefits the Italian player. Also an additional annoyance, so to say, for Babur is that these fire guys can burn down these houses, and that would probably make it harder for Babur to hold these walls. In fact, if you were Kushluk, you could just make a case for a galley or so, trying to get through these walls. Maybe Babur doesn't notice and you might have a chance to run some knights in later on over there. Small chance, but it could be an annoyance for Babur that his walls are sort of exposed to galley firing over here. With that, it looks like indeed Babur is just waiting until his upgrades come in, and Kushluk, he's gonna have a way better eco, but it takes some time until the fishing eco kicks in, and those two fishing ship snipes might have been very, very good for Babur overall, because that was the two fishing ships that pretty much were needed to have an even castle age time to the opponent. Usually the player that wins water will have a better castle age time because of the extra food eco, but Kushluk having 2 minutes DC idle time pretty much set his eco back even more. So if you think about it, by the time he reaches Castle Age, he's gonna be about 4 Voyagers ahead, but in reality, he has 7 fishing ships, so that TC idle time is going to hurt him so badly, especially with Persians, because Persians even make Voyagers faster on their TC, so the 2 minutes TC idle time is even worse for Persians. With that being said, Crossbow Botkin and Boso coming in here for Babur. His army is gonna get intercepted over here. That was a little sloppy from him, but now he knows that his opponent has his entire army over here. We'll try to micro this down. You focus on the archers in this scenario because those are the more valuable units. Nice micro over there from him. He's also breaking through the walls. And there will be more crossbows coming in to reinforce. We'll see if there is a siege workshop or not. Definitely no forward siege workshop right now from Babur. He doesn't have the map control for that, but he was successful picking off quite a lot of archers. Still, the crossbows now break into the base of Kushluk, who's gonna have to run for some quick walls. The crossbows could still pass over here if they want to, or potentially try to get through these walls, which aren't super strong, honestly. In fact, it's only 80 HP, and Persian Knights will do excellent over here, but there is not even a single stable from Kushluk, which means that we will probably see elite skirms coming in here from him, which means that we could see Knights or potentially Siege Workshop from Babur, depending on the circumstances. Indeed, elite skirm, crossbow, Botkin as well, and it seems like there was a... Oh, that's so tricky. That's actually an overchop. I don't think Kushluk saw that hole. Now, elite skirm will be in just in time, so that saves the day for him, although the crossbows now will camp in the face of those skirms, so this is still okay for Babur, and with good micro, he can actually focus down the skirmishers. At this point, though, you can actually start thinking about picking off wills, because you don't, or you can't win this fight overall. There is going to be more skirms reinforcing, so you will probably just keep your crossbows running around or try to dive in, pick off a couple of Voyagers. But look at the next batch of crossbows coming in already. Disaster on the other side from Babur, by the way, who loses, I think, 4 or 5 Voyagers to this crossbow blob. He wasn't expecting this one, and he pays the price really badly. That blacksmith being taken up by the fire ship could be annoying in the long run for Babur, who is also forced to chase this army, tries to go for the second gold mine over there. And Babur's aggression wasn't really working out because the elite skirm came in just in time for Kushluk. You really could have considered, I think, using those 5 leftover crossbows after it was evident that he isn't able to win this fight over here. For a moment, it seemed like he's going to be able to edge out victory against the elite skirms because he was in their face, and he picked off the majority of them before they were upgraded, but it wasn't enough. And because of that, he's going to lose this battle, but because of that, he also needs to focus down Veils at that stage. Nice micro from Red over there, and there's multiple overchops. The massive ones of overchops over here from Red. To me, I feel like Red is... I'm starting to get more and more Daniel vibes, because I can see Daniel having these little inefficiencies in his eco, so to say, which is weird because in the previous game I was actually saying how much he's paying attention to detail with his eco. So some contradictory clues over here so far for us. We'll have 3 TCs coming in from Kushluk, and 3 TCs already though from Babur. And Persians will struggle quite badly against Genoese crossbows, so in late game Babur is going to have a massive advantage over his opponent. We're going to see villagers probably could be sent out to take this hunt over here. It's so close to the TC that that's definitely a possibility. And the food eco is also a lot more well developed for Babur. So Babur seems to be a pretty clean player. To me, that what I've seen so far from Babur, a little idle time, overall very nice and clean execution, even though there were some sloppy moments. To me that kind of feels like a top 16-ish player, maybe Max, maybe Lan. I will be tempted to say Lan because I feel like Max wouldn't have given up on water that easily. Maybe Heart could be an idea here. Slam could also be a candidate. It's hard to guess. This is going to be really hard to guess because both these players are playing standard and you don't see any visual clues. Sometimes you see like players having macro issues, having micro issues that can help, or potentially certain civilization map selections, but none of these are actually clues here. And did I mention that just keeping these ships over here, I thought the galley is going to be needed to range this one, but it seems like the fire galley can also range this, can be so helpful, because you would assume that the opponent notices that, but in reality, oftentimes the players don't pay attention to things like this, because you see it, but there is other things to handle, like actually microing your army. So opening up the wall like that is actually huge. And now I like this move as well from Kushluk. He's running back over here, and that means that these crossbows will have a little bit harder time cleaning them up. Ballistics on the way for Babur, as he's now having the villager lead over here despite losing 7 and only killing 2. And behold, the faster Imperial Age for Italians could actually start kicking in here. We'll see if we see a tech switch from Kushluk. It doesn't seem like it's the case, so he's going to continue with elite skirms, which raises the question of what is Babur going to do with that, because right now he's full crossbows, and I would think that the ideal unit composition for him is Genoese crossbows. And look at this, they're just waiting for the opportunity for Babur to move up. That's exactly what they're waiting for. They're waiting to see if Babur is moving up, because if he does, they will actually once again counterattack. This army here is pinning Babur down inside his own base. Now that's not really a big deal for Babur right now, as he's going to take a hit over here on that mangonel, but it wasn't finished off just yet, because he's still confident just booming up to Imperial Age over here. Kushluk having some eco issues. Once again, I feel like a player like, for example, Max or Hart wouldn't be floating 1000 wood at this stage of the game. There is a lot of micro involved in this, so obviously you see why he's floating it. He's paying attention elsewhere. That's a nice mango shot from Babur. But I feel like top 16 players wouldn't have this much wood in the bank over here. If there was a market coming up, Kushluk would actually be able to buy himself up and probably have the same castlation time than his opponent. Formations. I mean, what is this? Is the entire hotkey set from Kushluk wrong? Because it kind of feels like it. I guess the formations hotkey was that he wasn't able to split away from mangonel shots. Something was wrong with his hotkeys. That's something to pay attention to, indeed, because they're using new Steam accounts to play this. So many players may have forgotten to set up some of their hotkeys. That's something that they have to pay attention for. I expect to see some things like that in the first round of the Hidden Cup for main event as well. So he forgot to set up his hotkeys for this. We're going to have another range coming in here. Imperial Age on the way for Babur. Not so fast from Kushluk, as he is now playing on 4 TCs, loops around with a couple of elite skirms. Persians don't have Bracer, So those skirms and those crossbows will not really be efficient once we get into Imperial Age. Voyager count is that even, and it seems like Babur is going to be able to afford a fast Bracer, Art Blast, and Chemistry. You prioritize Bracer and Chemistry though here, because you want Bombard Cannons, or you can also go for Rams, as things stand. So it looks like this force isn't going to do much. Picks off one Voyager though, but that just signals Babur that his opponent is over there. If you take a look at Babur's POV, he's got pretty decent vision. He wanted to get an outpost here. Voyager gets picked off, so the army is probably over there. Mangonels in the middle will have a fight coming in here as the first defensive castle is on the way. 1-for-1 Mangonels in the middle. Babur is going to take a shot and finishes off the Mangonel, so ends up being a 1-for-2. And that castle could also be in a bit of a trouble here. Imperial Age is not the way for Kushluk, but he's still 2 minutes away, whereas his opponent is up to Imperial. And that castle being denied is a huge thing, because I don't think that castle is going to go up at all. That's going to be Arblasts now, and the lead skirms won't really scare, at least Castle Age lead skirms won't really scare Arblasts. This force might actually be threatening a little bit, but look at this. Babur is walled off over here, he's got an outpost, and he's going to see whatever is happening, and he will switch into cavalry here. Battering Ram on the way to push the castle. Castle will be cancelled and replaced by Kushluk over here. Babur doesn't have stone for his own castle yet, and that is going to slow down his push as you see the fast chemistry coming in here for bombard cannons. Crossbows will try to get in here. Nice quick walls from Babur, but he will lose a couple of Voyagers in this one. Arblasts are now in, and Arblasts can pick off the Mangonel relatively easily, especially if they have Bracer. So, kept them in as well, +2 defense coming in. Babur is playing very, very clean so far. He's going for a Siege Workshop, trying to make sure that his opponent isn't able to get some more Mangonels out that could threaten his units, although the Mangonel from the back is going to be able to do quite a lot of damage to the Rams. One Ram goes down, but now the Arbalasts will be able to pick off the Mangonels. This Siege Workshop is history now, and that's the Stone Mine that Kushluk is using, so that's something that he has to be careful about. Losing that stone mine will mean no more castles for him. This force here is still being annoying, but it seems like we're gonna have Italian Light Cav coming in. Italian Light Cav is actually very, very good, given the circumstances. But here's the deal, and that's where Italians struggle quite mightily. What happens if your opponent goes for heavy cavalry and you do not have Genoese crossbows? If you have Genoese crossbows, it's amazing, but there is no Genoese crossbows just yet, and that could result in all these Arbalasts getting overrun by heavy cavalry. You see that Cavalier and Chain, well, right now it's just Chain Barding, but soon it's going to be Plate Barding coming in here, and that means that those Persian Cavalier with the extra attack against archers, they could do an awful lot of damage, and Italians don't have halberdiers, so they have to rely on Genoese crossbows to stay alive against Arbalest, or stay alive against Paladin or Cavalier. Soon there is going to be a castle from Babur. A castle over here would actually be pretty reasonable, as now Babur is diving deep into the opponent's base over here. Kushluk is going to have to evacuate one of the gold mines. The problem right now that Kushluk is facing is numbers. So he has one cavalry on the field, whereas he's up against, I mean, look at this, 56 army against 6. If Kushluk is actually able to mass like 20-ish cavalier, it's going to start becoming a completely different scenario, but right now still, Babur should have the upper hand by a massive margin. He's got bombard cannons. Castle should be dropped over here on this gold mine because you want to control this choke point, you want to control that gold mine. A second castle can be dropped somewhere around over here, for example, later on. As Babur is going heavy on stone, so he really is intending to go for more Genoese crossbows. So finally bombard cannons are on the way. We'll see some light cavs slowly streaming in, and we're even going to see Cavalier from Babur. Now, as I said, Italians need Genoese crossbows in this scenario, but Genoese crossbows also need a meat shield in front. Either Cavalier or Light Cav could be a reasonable meat shield in this case. I like this little Light Cav raid. It's not going to do much, but if it intercepts like 10 Villagers, that's a dream scenario for Babur. Trap out just now for Kushluk, but you could see Babur picking off that trap with the bombard cannons. Trap is going to take a shot, Babur reacts to it and runs away, picks off some more shots on the castle. This ram is idle here for now. Could actually start marching towards the castle, but that's now scary cavalier numbers. And there is still no Genoese crossbowman for Babur, who is getting a castle up here on the right side first. So Genoese crossbows, like an actual unit on the front line, isn't really on his mind right now. He's stacking into forging, which is going to be for his cavalry. Nice find over there on the stone mine. Limits the movement of his opponent. But as I said, those cavalry numbers are getting scary. Nice bombard in a micro over there from Babur. Picks off the Treb. But the castle is still under repairs. And as I said, there is soon going to be enough cavalier for Kushluk to take this fight. And I think that Babur starts to sense that something is wrong here because it's going to be a lot of cavalier. This is going to be a decisive fight. It's a lot of arbs though on the field. 54 arbs against Kushluk. The main question here is if Kushluk actually moved too fast here. Because if he moved too fast, he revealed the cavalier to his opponent. Even though I think it was fairly obvious we're going to see cavalier against arbalests only. I think that he moved a little too early. Because he doesn't have +4 attack. And he doesn't have the numbers, more importantly. I think that's a little bit of a problem. Counter rate coming in here with the cavalier though. We'll have Pavise in for those archers, which is going to give them 1 extra melee armor. As you see over here, they will now be +4, +5. And you see, this is the problem for Kushluk. He can't afford to streaming cavalier by cavalier. He actually needs like 1 big blob of cavaliers. And I feel like he has thrown away that opportunity. He's actually going to attack into Paladin. On which, well, obviously, when it finishes, it's going to be devastating. The question is, does he have enough time to have that finish, though? Because now Genoese crossbows will be on the field, and with multiple castles out, well, at least there should be Genoese crossbows on the field, to put it that way. And we're probably going to see Trebs as well. I feel like Kushluk should have waited a little bit more. Either when he wasn't really forced to push this out by any means. But he decided to do so, as once again the cavalry can run inside over here, supported by the fire ships. So, like 10 cavalry inside the Seiko could cause quite a lot of chaos, as now Kushluk is expanding to the side. Babur has a confident score lead though, as we're gonna have the first Treb coming out. Still, 50 seconds away from Paladin, and this map has a lot of gold, so Paladins are definitely a possibility over here. I feel like Babur is actually missing a lot of Genoese crossbows from the field right now, and indeed now he starts stacking into those, but the problem is right now that he needs to keep those castles alive to make sure that he doesn't lose his Genoese crossbow production. Still, it's 76 army against 24, but the army quality will soon be much better for Kushluk. I think that he has moved a little too early with the cavalier though. That's just my feeling. It's really hard to judge, but I feel like if he actually waits for like 10 more cavalier, it would have been completely different. Tumbling just coming in for Babur, and one thing that you have to keep in mind is that once Genoese crossbows start coming out for Babur, who is also pop capped by the way, so that is why we don't see any of those on the field. This fight could start turning around, although you see why I'm saying that Paladin is the right play, and Italians struggle very badly against heavy cavalry if they do not have Genoese crossbows, and that's the tricky part, getting to Genoese crossbows, and you see that even just a couple of Paladins here are causing insane damage here. That was like 50 arbalests that are now down to 20, and there is still an awful lot of gold left on this map. So Kushluk can very well keep spamming Paladin here, which also requires a lot less babysitting, so you don't need to micro them as much as you need to micro archers. Genoese crossbows will slowly come in now, so I feel like the win condition now for Kushluk is taking down this castle. Because otherwise, his opponent will only have 2 castles, and I feel like he can actually overrun his opponent with Paladins if it's only 2 castles. Genoese crossbows don't train super fast, so you could really make a case for focusing down this castle and trying to make sure that his opponent is just low on Genoese crossbows in general. Now there is more and more coming in here. This is actually one of the rare scenarios when technically both units counter the other. So the Persian Paladin does have the attack bonus against the Genoese crossbows. The Genoese crossbows also are a hard counter to cavalry. One thing that's really missing for Kushluk though is Blast Furnace. And his bonus attack against archers is pretty much fading away because he doesn't have Blast Furnace. It's an enormous mistake. He probably just forgot it because he can definitely afford it. Now it's Blast Furnace, but Ring Arch Armor first is also an interesting decision. At this point, you could make a case for Commander on crossbows if you are Kushluk. Because Commander on crossbows will trade fairly cost efficiently against Genoese crossbows. And what you need to make sure is that you just pick off those Genoese crossbows. But as I said, I feel like Kushluk is on a timer, because Babur's Genoese crossbow numbers will soon rise. And when he gets to, well, I think he already got to the critical mass of like 20 plus gen bows. I think that the window is slowly closing for Kushluk. It's not impossible to turn this around, but he wasn't able to capitalize on the fact that his opponent was very, very late adding Genoese crossbows. I think that if he waits with that cavalry army a little bit, until he gets a bit better numbers, he could have destroyed this entire Arbalest force. Now, he's up against a lot of Genoese crossbows, and this is one of the reasons why Italians are picked so frequently on this map. Italians have a pretty decent answer to Mongols with Genoese crossbows early on. Like, Genoese crossbow traps and potentially some bombard cannons is tough for Mongols to counter until they don't get to, like, actual onagers, a lot of Mangudai, potentially Rams, but that takes so much time for Mongols. So, in this early to mid-imperial scenario, the Italians are actually one of the best civilizations for this map because they hard counter so many of the top civilizations like Mongols. They would be doing reasonably against Lithuanians, although not amazing because of the elite skirms. They're doing very, very well against Persians if they get to Genoese crossbows. And look at this. Oh my goodness. Kushluk was trying to go for a gold mine, but he's just gonna get absolutely torn apart. Paladins are doing some damage here, but even just a couple of Genoese crossbows will help hold this one. And once again, I'm starting to feel that Babur is indeed one of the top 16 players in here, because this game had a lot of fighting going on. A lot of things to focus down, raids left, raids right, microing this army, and he was still able to get 3 relics, which means that we are talking about a player that sees the importance of relics, and players outside of the top 16 would probably not put that much emphasis on picking up relics when there's so many things happening at the same time. It's once again a huge horde of cavalry, or paladin now, and you have to keep in mind that the Genoese crossbows kind of need a meat shield in front of them. And I'm not 100% sure if that many Genoese crossbows is enough to deal with this many paladins. That's a lot of paladins. Like, they melt paladins, that's sure, but these paladins also do a lot of damage to them, and they can get a very, very good surround. So this, I think, is going to be just armies cancelling each other. You see how many paladins are going down here. Genoese crossbows are crazy, but also these paladins deal extra damage against archers. That's basically the entire army of Babur going down. But you also have to consider that if Babur loses his entire army here, Kushluk will suddenly have a bunch of paladins that will have sort of no counter on the field. And remember that Genoese crossbow numbers is what matters the most here. 25 right now is the count. Many of them are slowly going down, and it's much easier to replenish the paladins than it is to replenish the Genoese crossbows. Also, you have a mobility advantage here for Kushluk, so this is still doable for Kushluk over here. He just needs to be active with his paladin, keep raiding, and yeah, the tricky thing for him is that he needs to start killing castles, because he's up against 1, 2, 3, 4 castles. All of those flooding out Genoese crossbows will be very, very tough to fight against. He also needs some additional trebs, so like a third, even a fourth one would make sense. But I like the elite skirm play. The elite skirms here are missing bracer, but it's much easier to replenish your paladin and your elite skirms than it is to replenish Genoese crossbows. That's the game plan here for Kushluk, and you see that the score is now very, very close for both players. As elite skirms, they just kind of have to sacrifice themselves diving in for the Genoese crossbows, buying some time for the paladin, and that's one castle that's gonna go down really easily here, and paladins just keep flooding and flooding. This is definitely one of the rare maps where you're actually going to see 1v1 games with paladins, because there's so much gold on the map that it really justifies taking into paladin here. Now, most of those paladins are going down, but I feel like that was an okay-ish trade for Kushluk, because he tried stopping this, well, not stopping, but destroying this castle, and that's gonna be huge. In the meanwhile, though, his TC here is gonna be stopped by Genoese crossbows, and cleaning this up is gonna be a nightmare, because like, you can't just send a couple of paladins to clean this one up. You need to send elite skirms or so, but they take so much time to get there. So if this was just standard, I don't know, Arbalests raiding over there, so to say, then you just send a couple of paladins and you're good to go. But because they are not, it's much, much harder to clean those up. Travis is focusing down the siege workshop, as there is multiple things inside. There is going to be at least 1 bombard cannon, probably 2 coming in just now. But you don't really want to lose your traps to bombard cannons. That's the thing here. Traps even focusing down the archers over here. But now it seems that Kushluk is slowly pushing this. You can say that he has transformed into Push-Look. Kushluk was also one of the usernames that were used in last year's Hidden Cup show matches, and I actually had this spawn last year as well, and it was still awful. This feels like a bit of an overcommitment from Kushluk. He isn't necessarily forced to fight this, he's trying to snap down the Bombard Cannon. Now he needs to disengage with his cavalry though, because as good as his paladins are against archers, and even though he has skirmisher support, this is an overinvestment here. Well, not overinvestment, but this is an overcommit. This is a huge overcommit from Kushluk, and he could lose the game with that. Like, he had the traps over here on the left side, all he needed to do is just defend them. That's a massive misplay from Kushluk. He's killing a lot of villagers, but sacrificing so many paladins is really a questionable decision. Especially because his traps are being taken down, but another castle goes down, and maybe Kushluk is still able to do this. A lot of skirms got cleaned up here by Light Cav. Once again, they had no cavalry support because all the cavalry died here. So, this is still tricky. Because unit composition-wise, I would say that Babur should still have the upper hand, but you see that the castles are slowly going down, and I think the biggest problem right now that Babur is facing is that the castles that he has remaining are on the right side. Which means that the Genoese crossbows have to walk through the entire map to get to the front line, which is a massive, massive deficit right now. Still, the elite skirms over here won't really be doing much, and it seems like the juice is slowly running out for Kushluk as well. He's still floating 2k food, 500 gold, but it seems like there is no more paladins on the field. And as I said, those skirmishers from Persians will be missing Bracer, and it hurts so badly. And as I said, I think that he has thrown away that army really, really badly. That shouldn't have been a thing. He should have just waited a little bit more defensive play with the traps supporting, take down the castle, or send all the paladins into the eco here would have been great. He still detached a couple of paladins, and they are cleaning up a significant portion of the opponent's food eco here. As it seems like this castle will be temporarily denied, a couple of paladins will be dispatched to help this one go up. Because I guess now the plan for Kushluk is that he wants to push this side and take down these two castles to prevent his opponent from going for Genoese crossbows. If Babur isn't able to go Genoese crossbows, then Kushluk wins the game. Because Italians don't have even halberdier. Their pikeman is pretty meh, so Genoese crossbows need to be on the field, but there is still a huge amount of them on the field. Whereas if you take a look at Kushluk's army, there isn't really a lot of paladins left, to be honest. In fact, he seems to be running out of juice in general. So, with that, paladins are still wreaking some havoc though. Voyager count slightly in the favor of Kushluk, but not by a massive margin, to be honest. Now he's gonna bring up the skirmishers. Tries to make a trap. He's already being trapped down over here though. And there could be bombard cannons being made here as well. It seems like Babur also went for building HP upgrades, because he wants to keep those castles alive. He knows exactly how important those castles are. Still, I think that Kushluk could still send a couple of paladins into the eco here every once in a while, because pressure on that starting eco could definitely be something that helps out a lot for him here. Tries to snap down the traps with the paladins. Genoese crossbows will actually be eaten up here by the skirmishers, but this castle, I don't think it's going to stay up. It's going to be very close. It's gonna be very close, and the castle goes down. So these paladins arrive just a little too late. And as I said, Italian light cav is actually pretty decent. 95 HP, +4/+4. So Genoese crossbow Italian light cav is a much better composition than Persian paladin elite skirm. Especially the Persian elite skirm is the problematic thing here, because it's not just about the damage output, it's also about the range here, and also those Genoese crossbows have pavises, so they have a pretty decent pierce armor, whereas these skirmishers are lacking the final attack upgrade, which hurts quite badly. That's the best unit that Kushluk can go for, but I feel like even his best unit might not be satisfactory over here in this one. Still, as I said, the win condition is pretty simple. For Kushluk, he needs to take down those castles. If he takes down the castles, he's going to win the game, because Italians can't do anything against heavy cavalry themselves. So, really, what Kushluk needs is those castles to be killed, and then that army cleaned up, of course, but that's the easier part. I like this castle from Babur. This actually prevents raids from happening. It's a rather safe castle, so it's hard to lose it. It's a safe place to produce Genoese crossbows at, and it also protects your starting eco. And now, let's take take a look at this fight. This is tricky because the Paladins are expensive, so you don't want to lose them to the Genoese crossbows, but that also applies to the Genoese crossbows. You don't just want to dive in with them on the Paladins and let them get picked off by the skirmishers, but you see that inch by inch, Babur is slowly crawling forward, and we also shouldn't underestimate the fact that he's sitting on 3 relics. His opponent is on 1 relic only, which means that there is 1 unclaimed relic over here on the map, as the map is slowly running out of gold, which is something that we also need to keep in mind. In fact, there's not 2 on gold from Kushluk, 0 on gold from Babur. I think that also helps Babur here quite heavily, because the Genoese crossbows will eat up the remaining heavy cavalry from the opponent, and replacing the Paladins will be insanely hard for Kushluk. In fact, he's just trying to get gold over here as Kushluk taps out. He wasn't able to break the line of the Genoese crossbows and ends up losing game number 2 as well. But a much closer game than the previous one. I feel like Kushluk was in a tough spot, and maybe he switched to Knights too late. He wanted to go for Elite Skirm defense, which is fine, but I think the Knights edition might have come a little too late, especially knowing that he was Persians. Alright, let's take a look at the draft after this one. So Babur wins the second one here as well in what was a much closer game than the first one, as now Kushluk is down 2 games suddenly over here, and that means that we're going to High Tides or a hideout over here as the next home map of Kushluk. And that is going to be High Tide. So we're actually going to take a look at the brand new High Tide map script. Something that, as I said, I had a bit of a criticism for it in the previous map well, not the previous, but the map review video I did. So we're gonna have a Kushluk as Mongols on the right side in red and Huns for Babur in teal. That's a very interesting combination of civilizations. So I think, based on what I've seen, and based on what I would think, Japanese feels like an extremely strong civilization for this map, because there's a lot of deep fish on the north that justifies picking Japanese, and making it much harder to kill your fishing ships actually helps an awful lot here. So my main criticism towards this map was that oftentimes it kind of feels like players are just going to be able to wall themselves off easily and just go for full fire galley fights, which I don't think is the original intention of the map, based on the changes that were implemented to the original High Tide script between the qualifiers and the main event of Hidden Cup 3. That being said, these generation seem to be a little bit more open than usual. In fact, this is very open. It's technically wallable for both Babur and Kushluk, but the woodlands being a little bit further away from the TC actually helps a lot. If this was the consistent way this map spawns, I would have said it's a good map, because I feel like walling this one off is actually a nightmare, I would say. Not impossible, but it is too much of a time investment, I feel like. So if this was the consistent script, it's a small thing. Having the distance between the wood lines and your TC increased, or lowering the amount of wood lines that you have, I feel like that would make this map completely different. That being said, it seems like we have a capture age completely freezing. That was awkward at minimum, but we're going to have Kushluk going for standard scouts over here. I wonder why the Mongols then. He pushed in the deer, sure, but he's missing out on 2 of his sheep, so that's actually pretty sloppy scouting from Kushluk. Once again, I feel like Kushluk is not a top 16 player. Small clues point towards that, like that sloppy scouting here as well. Mongols kind of makes no sense to me. Also, very ballsy feudal age here. Look at that. Kushluk actually went for no loom feudal. That's super ballsy, considering how open he played. And it seems like neither of the players are actually going for water, which is interesting. In this case, we're going to see an Arabia 2.0. I think that this map has so much fish that this map should justify a fish play. The tricky thing here is that if Babur goes for a fish, he might be pushed on land. So that's something that he needs to pay attention for. Here comes a spearman opening as well for Kushluk coming in. And at the end of the day, Babur is going to play semi-open here. He's going to have some little walls walling off his wood line. He's going to start making a wall here. But for now, I'm not sure if Kushluk's scouts will do a lot of damage. But you have to consider that, look at this now. Kushluk is actually delaying the dock. Kushluk is a man with a plan here, and I like this a lot more than what we're seeing from Babur. Babur seems to be just reacting to this one, and he will be defending against the scouts. But one thing that he doesn't know is that his opponent is sneaking a dock up on here, and this could be a good plan for Kushluk because his opponent won't know that the dock is out there. There is no way he sees it because he's also going to use his scouts to fight. He has scouted the shoreline at the beginning of the game, sees that, okay, Kushluk is not going for a dock as Kushluk picks up the first Voyager. You see that if you take a look at Babur, scouting, he has checked out this island. This is usually where you place your dock. And he also checked out around over here. He was looking for Voyagers, he didn't find any, and he's like, okay, my opponent is not on water. He's gonna go on land. That's why he reacted with the barracks and the stable. But this delayed dock over here could be a good idea from Kushluk because he won't have to fight for water. He will have it guaranteed because it doesn't seem like Babur will go for water anytime soon. And you see that Babur is already dropping farms with Horsecolor. Horsecolor is in as well for Kushluk, and he already has Farming Eco working for him as well. But this is going to be the added benefit of that dock over there. And with that, I feel like that's actually a very reasonable idea for Kushluk. I like this game plan. I like this a lot. As much as I was kind of criticizing him for some decisions made, especially in the first game, with the 5th Met arms, the no walls whatsoever, but I also criticized him a little bit in the previous one. I feel like this is a much better game plan than what Babur has. Babur kind of feels like he's trying to react to this one, but he seems like he hasn't really figured out how to play this one just yet. This is a wood line that's walled in currently. Some Voyagers close to the TC are weak, but eventually Kushluk will be walled on the left side, and even if you have partial walls, that helps a lot, because you kind of just want to limit the opponent's movement here as much as possible. Nice move to have the Voyager walled in as well, so she can take this shorefish. And that's a hole on the wood line, because I think Babur just added a couple of Voyagers on that wood line, that's why he deleted the wall. But eventually he's going to re-wall it and the scouts will disengage. Scouts coming in on the other side, we'll see if they can pick off someone. The wood line from Kushluk is walled in here. Babur scouts running into the spearman will jump it, and one of them takes significant damage. The berry Voyagers are still a little bit exposed, but there is another spearman here. Still, I think Kushluk might need to run here with his Voyagers here a little bit, because that still seems to be enough scouts to cause a lot of chaos, and indeed, this will force Kushluk to fall back to his own base. He went very heavy on the scouts, but this will probably just result in about even-ish castle age times, because while Kushluk has the fishing eco working for him, as that army now will get trapped in here, Babur actually invested into less scouts, and because of that, the two players should be relatively even in terms of like overall food bank whatsoever. Indeed, Kushluk cleans this up, but this helps Kushluk a little bit because he still has 5 almost full HP scouts. Look at this. One of them is a little bit damaged, but that's still a pretty decent amount of scouts, and he can actually pull those and start pushing the base of Babur over here, who starts walling himself at the left side, interestingly. So he's afraid of the push from the back more than from the right side. Definitely interesting, but it makes sense because his gold mine is over here, and he also has an open wood line here. Whereas, even if units come from this side, his base, there isn't really much that they can kill immediately, so he's got time to react. It looks like Kushluk will once again sneak around. He apparently has forgotten about this final scout inside this stable, as we have a blacksmith coming in, as Kushluk is thinking about going into Imperial, or not Imperial, in Castle Age over here. What am I talking about? But, as I said, massive untouched fishing eco, and Babur has no idea about that. So the game plan here is a bit of a gamble, but it's basically building on the fact that Babur never checked for fish again, and he never thought about going for fish himself. I feel like after seeing a couple of games on this map, I'm fairly certain that the players will eventually always go for water in the main event of Hidden Cup, just because the water seems so important here. But you see that Babur doesn't know that. Babur just wants to play this one as if this was just like Arabia or so. Wants to go for double ranges, not making any archers though, so this is gonna be a crossbowman play from him, I believe. If he wanted, or what, this is gonna be a cav archer play, that's what I want to say. If this was a crossbowman play, he would be making archers by now. He's not doing that, so this is a cav archer play. Double range CA, so we could see probably additional TCs being added. But on the other hand, what are we gonna have? We're gonna have probably knights plus camos could be a reasonable combination. There's the third range coming in. Kushluk knows about the ranges, which means that he knows exactly he's up against cav archers. Tries to isolate one villager and pick it off. That's a nice move, using the leftover feudal age scouts for some damage, and he sees the triple ranges. He knows exactly that his opponent is gonna go for triple range CA. The wood income is actually pretty decent for Babur, which means that he could afford an additional TC or a university for ballistics. I feel like with this primary gold being this exposed, you want the TC over here or here, because you need that primary gold eventually. Kushluk is playing semi-open, as his right side is slowly being walled off, and we're gonna have double stable camos coming in here for him. I think that I like Babur's unit composition a lot better, so I think that cav archers here with Hans will just be doing much better than the camos will from Kushluk, but I like that Kushluk actually has a lot of fishing eco working for him, so the eco lead is undeniable, and I also like this galley here. This galley would need to make sure that there is no redocking here, although it's also a tricky scenario as we have this scouts jumping the spearmen and eventually finishing them off. Now it's bloodlines +1, +2 even, so these scouts are actually pretty scary and intimidating, and they could try pushing the woodlands or the gold mines. Babur just getting the first couple of cav archers out. Makes a knight too, I like that move. He could also make a couple of spearmen to deal with the early camos, and as such, we'll have 3 TCs coming in here for Kushluk, only the second one just now coming in for Babur, but they should have no trouble cleaning this one up for the time being, and there is gonna be enough spears here to be able to hold against the early camos, I believe. But still, Hans could struggle a little bit against this camo play here, because there is no more cav archers, at least one of the ranges is not making any CA, so the numbers aren't increasing as fast as it is supposed to. What I want to say about this galley over here, as the scouts are actually almost through these walls, is that you have to be careful with that galley, because if you actually have Babur just having a scout here, for example, and the galley shoots it, then Babur will know that his opponent is on water. And now that's a lot of camos with +2 defense, and I think the problem that Babur is facing is numbers. The triple range cav archer play is supposed to be able to pump out a lot of CA, but you see that there's barely any on the field. So he has been in Castle Age for quite a while, but only 6 cav archers on the field. That is something that double stable camos can easily outproduce, and you see that happening exactly over here. And there's going to be a 4th range coming in here for Babur, but you have to ask the question if a 4th range is the problem or the actual idle time on these ranges, because you see that there is quite a lot of idle time, especially in particular on this range. This has been idle more than it actually was used. I'm not sure what happens here for Babur. Maybe he's got control groups on those ranges, but I don't think that the lack of archer range is the problem. The problem is that we just don't have consistent production on these. That being said, once you have like 20-ish cav archers, they will actually start becoming a formidable force. We have camos coming in on the north to get some raiding damage done, but they won't find anything, I believe. 2 TCs for Babur over here, as he doesn't have husbandry, which is an extremely important upgrade for your cav archers. No husbandry, no bloodlines. Actually, there is bloodlines here for him, so he needs to get husbandry really fast against the camos. Husbandry should also be a priority for Kushluk though, because he wants to chase down those cav archers, so it makes sense for him to grab that. And now it looks like the scouts are through these walls, and there's a lot of dead villagers. These scouts are no joke here. Like +1, +2 bloodlines, they actually kill quite a lot of villagers, and they did. Kushluk killed 8 villagers from his opponent, and he lost 0 so far in this game. And you also have to add the fact that he's got food eco from the fish as well, which is amazing. And we could soon see a forward siege workshop from him, although I feel like he will just apply pressure on his opponent and eventually switch into Mangonine. That's going to be a tricky part, because he will be, early on, he will be outnumbered quite heavily in terms of like mounted archers, so to say. So the cav archers will be more abundant than the Mangonine. So it's a tricky transition for Kushluk, but he's thinking about that. He's actually making a defensive siege workshop for Scorpions. Has a couple of camos over here that aren't really doing much. Might actually get kill on the cav archer. And there is husbandry in for those camos, and I don't think there is husbandry for those cav archers. So the camels could easily catch up with that blob and could do quite a lot of damage. For now, it seems like Kushluk will just sit on his lead though. He knows exactly he's got a big eco lead. He knows he has fish. He sees the majority of his opponent's base. You see, he knows everything here. He knows that his opponent is on 2 TCs, he has been on free for a while, and he also has fishing eco. So Kushluk is very well aware of the fact that he's got a massive eco lead. That I think is also somewhat signaled by the fact that he has a massive score lead. And he will just sit on this one, wait this out with the Siege Workshop and Scorpions, and like make sure that he doesn't die to these Cav Archers, and then he's gonna drop a castle, and eventually we will see Manga die from him. Here come the Cav Archers. As they see the Siege Workshop, they turn back immediately. Ballistics just coming in right now for Babur. And with that, he's still on 2 TCs, that's the problem. And when you play Trip Orange Cav Archers with Hans, you have to be aggressive and do damage to your opponent, because otherwise you will get outboomed. In the majority of the cases, Trip Orange CA is a 1 TC build, and the Scorpions pop out at the perfect time. Holy smokes. That was one big hit over there, as Babur lost a lot of HP. On those scouts, there's the forward Siege Workshop coming in here from him. But defensive castle is actually getting closer and closer for Kushluk, probably like a minute or so away. Still, Scorpions will start moving up. Kushluk doesn't really have an idea about his opponent getting a Siege Workshop up here, but he will soon find it out, because he's gonna send the camos this way. I think that this workshop will probably go up though in time. I love this revolt. This is beautiful. Palisade walls are just like single layer palisade walls are just inviting Cav Archers to break through them and run into your eco. This is why you revolt this one with Cav Archers, unless you're absolutely potato when it comes to revooling with the houses and you miss a tile. That was very, very unlucky there from Kushluk. I didn't even see that there was a tile there. Still, these are camels. With Husbandry, you see that they catch up really fast. And this is a nice choke point here for Babur, but losing that many Cav Archers is going to hurt him so much, and I think the surround is good enough here for Kushluk. This is actually a very, very nice cleanup, and obviously Kushluk lost a couple of camos here, but the amount of damage that he has caused on the opponent is absolutely crazy. And if you look at the military numbers soon, Babur is gonna be down to something like 15, 16 military, and the only thing I don't like is that you're sending 7 Scorpions completely unprotected here. If there was one knight here from the opponent, or even just a Mangonel, Kushluk would just lose all those Scorpions. It's very, very sloppy from Kushluk. He's doing the right thing, but this was a very, very sloppy execution from him, and I'm seeing this in multiple games. His execution in many instances seemed to be sloppy, and you see that he lost the majority of those Scorpions before they could actually start killing Cav Archers. They still do some damage here, and I feel like now with that castle coming up for Kushluk and the 30 Voyagers lead, especially if he balances out his eco and thinks about going into Imperial, I think that he should have no trouble closing this game out. But still, there were some sloppy moments for him here. Many of those Cav Archers are fairly weak. You see that the overall condition is around 70% only. And there is the Knight coming out to deal with the siege weapons. That's something I was talking about for Kushluk. He has played better because he had a better game plan here, but execution seems to be still on Babur's side. So you see that Kushluk is definitely one of those players that makes execution-based mistakes. Once again, a clue that he's not necessarily a top 16 player. And the more I'm seeing it, the more I'm thinking Daniel. We'll have some additional docks coming in here for Kushluk to increase the fishing efficiency. Soon he's gonna have to think about fish traps, but I mean, he's going into Imperial. Now he's gonna start getting into Mangadai. That's a castle drop coming on the other side, but I think that Kushluk will just go for defensive castle himself. The question is if he's actually able to get that up, because there's a lot of Cav Archers on the field. He's got camos, but the numbers aren't impressing me right now. Here comes the castle, and Kushluk will probably have to cancel that castle. That's not going up. You're trying to convert the knight. This could be a tricky fight for Kushluk, but he just needs to pull all these Voyagers. Pull these 20 Voyagers and get that castle up, and you win the game here, I think. If that's the case, you can even use some of your camos and the converted knight to push away the Voyagers over here, really behave like Kushluk, and yeah, at this point, losing the camos isn't really a factor. The factor is more important to deny this castle, and it seems like that castle is gonna be denied. Babur taps out, and Kushluk, a much more convincing game plan than what we see in the first 2 games, and it seems to slowly improve over time. So first game was a disaster for Kushluk, second game was alright, third game was much better, and he wins. the next game over here on the first home map of actually no, on his second home map. So with that, we cross out Mongols, which is the first pick for Kushluk, so he was preparing for this map over here. And Hans will be crossed out for Babur. I just generally didn't like Babur's game plan for this one, but this means that we are going to Babur's home maps. One of them could be Gold Rush, Quarry, or Bypass, and this is going to be the first time we're seeing Quarry or Bypass in a competitive Age of Empires set. So brand new maps. I'm particularly interested about Quarry because I think that's a map that I feel like I would love to play that, although I feel like it's not necessarily a completely legitimate tournament map, especially based on the player's tendencies. With that, we are gonna have the next game up over here. So it is Babur versus Kushluk, game number 4, and welcome to Quarry, a map that I criticized for, I think, being too well defendable and just too focused on, you know, late gameplay. So how does Quarry look like? There is actually a lot of, well, not a lot of gold, but some gold in the middle. Other than that, the players are separated by a line of trees over here, a line of trees over here. So the only way that you get to the opponent's base is over here, through the middle. There apparently is quite a lot of hunt in the middle, so you see that players will push in there. And basically, according to T90, the berries being always on the front makes this map aggressive, but I feel like at this point, you could just make a case for, you know, voling yourself up early here. But I like this move from Babur. And this is one of the reasons why it could be interesting to see these brand new maps in tournaments, because I think this is a sneaky Voyager. This is an extremely ballsy move with no loom on that Voyager. But as I said, this map is like a budget Black Forest, believe it or not. Because once you have these walls up here, this plays out just like Black Forest would do. Everybody booms and so on. But just like in Black Forest, a sneaky Voyager could be a thing, and that is now gone. Babur is not gonna get that up. And as I said, I think this is one of those scenarios, although the Voyager is going to wall himself in here, this is one of those scenarios where I just feel like you just start off by walling off the middle and then just continue from that point. Because that Voyager is getting hit diagonally, so he's having a little bit of a hard life over here. The scout is still full HP, and it seems like Babur will probably pull his scout now to get rid of that scout hitting his Voyager. Kushluk is sort of underreacting this though, because that sneaky Voyager could be a disaster for him. By the way, Babur is playing Vikings in teal. You see that Vikings is definitely one of those early Imperial Age sort of civilizations. Go for Arblast and Ram. And this is why I feel like Babur has, or Kushluk has underreacted this, because now the Voyager is coming out, and I think that Kushluk didn't notice this. That's very, very sloppy from him. He should have had a Voyager coming in here earlier. Just like Black Forest, as I said, this is budget Black Forest. You bring a lot of Voyagers to wall, because, yes, obviously your eco is going to be set back a little bit if you commit a lot to walling. But the gain is so huge. If you are protected from this side, you can boom whatever you want. And allowing a sneaky Voyager through like that is actually going to be an enormous thing. I would also like to add that I think that this sneaky Voyager will also cause a lot more players to wall earlier in the main event, I would assume. Because now they're seeing this show match, and even though they don't really have a clearly defined meta for this map, I feel like, based on this sneak, I have a feeling that players will actually start walling themselves off more in the main event. Still, I feel like this is copy-paste Black Forest playstyle. You go for early wars, prevent your opponent from running through, and then you can just boom whatever you want. Because there is no way your opponent gets through here. It's a very, very well defendable crossing. Tower rushes might work out, but as I said, what I would do is fast walls over here. Maybe even give up on the berries, but you might not even have to. And then all you do is just go for a fast feudal and then go in with an eco-heavy approach. So instead of going for a fast castle, because that would be dangerous because of potential tower rushes, I feel like what you do is go up in the feudal, get eco upgrades, get to castle, and then just boom your way up. It seems like this game is going to play out differently though, because Babur is hiding a villager here. This is actually something that, as I said, is very, very reminiscent of a Black Forest playstyle. Interesting discussion here in the chat. Not sure what to do with that, to be honest, as we'll have some more villagers moving out for hunt, and we will have a men-at-arms play, I believe, or is it a drush? It seems like it's a drush coming from both sides. Both players are actually putting some emphasis on the huntables in the middle because they don't have huntables for themselves. They only have kind of spread out huntables in the middle. Still, this sneak is actually a very, very max-like sneak. So, even though it's a small clue, it would fit the max narrative, so to say, because the thing is we have a 4th militia being added by Kushluk over here once again to decide this engagement in his favor. His opponent doesn't have a scout over here, but also Kushluk's scout is actually very weak, and they have a 5th militia coming in. So, we are gonna have 5 militias versus 3 militias and villagers. This should still be a good defense for Babur, and it's a heavy, heavy investment from Kushluk. See, all of those militias getting cleaned up. Villagers will obviously be damaged, but it's not the end of the world right now. And as I said, I feel like Babur has a good game plan for this map. Kushluk does not. Kushluk actually has a very, very bad game plan, I believe, here. Like, this wants to be a Drush FC without walls. He hasn't scouted his sheep here. This is a disaster game from Kushluk. As good as his preparation and game plan was for the previous game, I feel like Babur is doing what I would also love to do here. Even though I feel like he could have gone for earlier walls, although the hunt in the middle somewhat justifies going for a Drush-like strategy and trying to capitalize on that food at the middle as well. But in that case, this is basically Drush FC with the food in the middle, and then you just wall yourself up. Probably Premier Drush is the most likely possibility. So you go Premier Drush, send out villagers early on for the hunt, get as much food as you can from that, wall yourself up and go for an FC. And it seems like now Kushluk will find that villager. So he's actually going to get really lucky. He could have actually run into bigger problems with that villager. Now he's going up to feudal as the first player. But what is he exactly going to do in feudal? He's 27 wheels, which is a Drush FC timing, but I mean, he's wide open. So if Babur went scouts here with Vikings, although that would be very, very unconventional and awkward, he would just run past here and start killing villagers. So I'm really, really not a fan of Kushluk's game plan here. And he had a 1 HP scout, and even though he saw the villager, by the time he reacts to it, the villager is going to run away. That's a barracks coming up over there on that side. I would have loved to see it a little bit further down here somewhere, because it makes it harder to spot. Kushluk will see it, but it's going to be very, very hard for him to stop this one. I think the best thing that Kushluk can do now is wall it like this. Oh, that's so sloppy from Babur. And Kushluk can really tank the AoE gods, or can he? Oh, look at the deal moves here. That's beautiful from Babur. I was just about to say that Kushluk can tank the AoE gods, that he was able to stop this one, because he could have fallen to this so easily. This militia is just gonna get poked down. And you see, look at this. This is a rather clean Drush FC from Babur. He might need to add more than 2 villagers here, though, because he seems to be a little low on food. But he's gonna have a 4th villager over here. And with Vikings Eco, that's going to be a thing as well. And we're actually going to see militias, interestingly. So it looks like Babur is turning this into a man-at-arms play. That's 2nd barracks. I'm just noticing this. Haha. I forgot about the 2nd barracks. Maybe Babur forgot about that himself. But that's going to be a double man-at-arms play, and it looks like we're just gonna have some more villagers running past here. They will try to deny the archer ranges, that's the plan. Archers are coming out right now for Kushluk, but in the meanwhile, we'll have Castle Age coming in here for Kushluk. I am not necessarily a fan of this super aggro play now for Babur. That being said, if he walls himself up, he should be more than happy with that. And he's still gonna have the Vikings Eco, and they kind of just lamed the berry push there. That was sort of awkward. Man at Arms will still run around here as we have a late Man at Arms push here. That could still do a lot of damage because Kushluk doesn't have a lot of defensive units. And Kushluk losing his scouts also means that he didn't scout the right side. One of the things that I always said for this map, mostly in the map preview video but overall, is that you want to have an outpost here and here. Because if I was either of these players, I would actually try chopping through here. Because, in fact, it's actually easier to sneak a Voyager through by chopping through here. Like getting a lumber camp up. Japanese could be a sneaky civilization for that. Because with Japanese, you could afford a lumber camp very easily, and you could get like 3 Voyagers in here with a cheap lumber camp, chop through, and surprise your opponent that way. So, I feel like that's a mistake from both sides that they're not actually... Like, they don't have any tools of seeing if the opponent is around there. So, with that, the Man at Arms are still chilling around here. Castle Age is in for Kushluk though, and you see that Babur just scrambled to wall his base off. I really don't like that approach now. The first couple of minutes was way better as a game plan for Babur, but the follow-up was pretty much a disaster. And now, because this map is crater-shaped, one thing that you have to consider is that these crossbows can actually fire down hills. This is not even the appropriate wall to attack for Kushluk. He should use these crossbows on this hill to attack this part of the wall because that's down hills compared to them and they'll deal more damage. This might be down hills compared to them, but I don't think it is. So it would have been much easier to push this one instead. That being said, this is the time for a forward siege workshop potentially over here from our Berber player. Oh my god, Babur. What is he even doing? Oh my goodness, this is a disaster gameplay. I mean, I like the sneaky play from him, but after that the follow-up was an absolute mess, and he might just lose the game here, yeah. Holy smokes. One thing we have learned here is that Babur is not an experienced Black Forest player, because an experienced Black Forest player wouldn't have followed up a sneaky Voyager with this. He kind of felt like he didn't really know what to do with that Voyager. I think he forgot about his own barracks over here. I don't think that anyone would willingly be placing a second barracks for late Man-at-Arms play when you already see your opponent having archer ranges. I think he just forgot about the fact that he has a barracks back at home, so he made one over here because he wanted an archer range. So that was a lot of wood wasted. And overall, I think he walled himself up a little late. I don't like the Man-at-Arms play overall. And Kushluk's game plan wasn't great either, but he reacted better to the somewhat unconventional circumstances, so to say. And in a quick game, we have Kushluk striking back once again. Berbers are gone for him, and Babur is going to lose Vikings. We will go now to another home map for Babur, which is Gold Rush or Bypass. I would love to see Bypass in action. We'll see if we actually get there. Game number 5 already in this series, and it looks like we're going for a Gold Rush with Tatars versus Franks matchup over here. So, we're going to have Kushluk on the left side as red, Franks. Right side in teal is going to be Babur as Tatars. And once again, we'll actually speed through Dark Age over here for time conservation reasons. So, Babur's base on the right side is actually fairly vulnerable if you ask me. There's a safe stone at the back, the other stone is quite bad, but other than that, it's a easy wall here. You can actually wall like this, and you could wall like this, or you can just wall using the gold and later on PC that one. So this is actually a very, very good map for Babur. Other side, we're gonna have a front gold for Kushluk, which is not nice. Other gold is also very, very front, so both of his gold mines are absolute disasters. Over here, Babur has a lot of options to go for here, but I think that Tars is your typical either Rush FC or even Naked FC civilizations over here. Because you don't really want to open scouts here on a map that's relatively volable. You see that Kushluk is doing some heavy walling over here for himself. He's going to try and use that gold mine, which is going to be fine against scouts, but not against archers. And it seems like Babur is actually going for a fast feudal play here. I don't like that. No. Exactly because of this. This map is always wallable enough to completely deny a scout's play, and a 19 plot play is definitely not an archer play, which means that this wants to be scouts. This is a 0 out of 10 game plan for Babur here, if you actually ask me about it. Your opponent is fully walled. You can never anticipate scouts being viable on this map. We also have some kind of questionable walls here for Babur, and honestly, after a couple of last games, I'm starting to be a little bit more hesitant evaluating who Babur is, because I thought it's top 16 player, but honestly, execution is there, but game plan is kind of potato, to be honest. So I'm really unsure what to think about Babur right now. Babur could still just go full walls with the scouts and boom up. That would be a slightly better game plan, I believe. And indeed, that is probably going to be the plan now. His opponent is Franks, by the way, so maybe he went for scouts because he was anticipating scouts from a Frankish player. And the reality is that we're indeed seeing... Is this an FC? It seems like it is just fast fuel. This is definitely an FC because there is already a 4 Voyagers added in feudal. So this is just fast feudal eco into Castle Age from both players at the end of the day. Babur went for scouts. I guess that's alright, I just don't know why he even had to invest into scouts. I like Kushluk's game plan here a little bit better. If you wall yourself up, you don't even need to go for a barracks or a stable just now, and you're gonna have a slightly better Castle Age time. You don't need to invest into any scouts over here on this map, I believe. We apparently have a Wolf Rush coming in here from Kushluk, so he's going to try and deposit those wolves close to the opponent's base, make one spearman, and get rid of the wolves. These wolves will be annoying and could potentially deny Voyagers moving forward in certain instances. It's more like good looking rather than actually efficient play though, especially when your opponent is fully walled. If this was Dark Age with one militia, it would be a little bit more viable. But you will probably just delete your militia over here, or spearman at some point. You will drop those wolves around. Look at that. He even made a second spearman. He's actually doing all he can to do the wolf rush. Who could this be? I'm starting to have some Rubenstock vibe, believe it or not. Because, think about it, Rubenstock playing standard as this could be a disaster for Babur if he overchops this wood line. There is like 15 wolves, and this is something that Rubenstock would definitely love to do. And honestly, the skill level is approximately there. If you consider Rubenstock playing standard, obviously, if Rubenstock would play with TC drops and craziness, it would be so easy to guess. So you could really justify him not playing his usual playstyle because he wants to conceal his identity over here. But still, I feel like that Wolf Rush is not something that you see from a lot of players, that's for sure. With that, Castle Age is coming in here for both players. We will see, no surprise, Cav Archers here for Babur. And on the other side, what we're going to see though, that's the question. Like, Franks can go for early knights. Early +2 defense knights will just absolutely tear apart the Cav Archers, because the Cav Archers need a lot of upgrades to be viable. So, like, a knight flood with Franks supported by Scorpions could be very devastating against Kushluk's or the Cav Archers. For this reason, I would think that Babur needs to add a couple of camos early on. Because even just a couple of camos helps him buy himself some time until the Cav Archers actually start playing out. It seems like he's not gonna go for an all-in triple range Cav Archer play. It's going to be... Yeah, and he's missing a blacksmith, which hurts really badly. This is a very late blacksmith here. Because with that, we are gonna have the fletching delayed quite heavily, and that's not something that you want to have, especially when you're up against knights. It seems like we had a forward Voyager though that got intercepted by Babur and the Wolf, and that's going to hurt so much for Kushluk. He knew exactly that he needs a forward Voyager for this one, and one of the reasons why that Wolf Rush actually makes sense for him is because he clears the middle of wolves. One thing he doesn't know is that there is another wolf over here, and don't tell me he's going to lose another Voyager here. Oh, disaster from Kushluk. disaster. So with that, we are gonna have the knights coming forward. A couple of cav archers early on are here, but as I said, with Franks, this is exactly the way that you want to play this one. Forward Siege Workshop, aggressive, Scorpion heavy play, especially if your opponent isn't going for triple range cav archers. When you have +2 defense in for your knights, even +1 defense is gonna be fine. Husbandry early on coming in here for Kushluk, so he wants to be able to chase down those cav archers. He's really playing this one the way he's supposed to be doing it. And Botkin is now in for Babur. This is why I was saying that Babur needs a couple of early camos, because he can't really fight those early knights, believe it or not, with the cav archers, or at least not efficiently. He can't prevent that Siege Workshop from going up. And now it is going to be Siege Workshop on this hill. Once Scorpions are out, that's a completely different scenario now. Still, Kushluk has to be careful about losing that villager, for example, and doubt confirmed. I'm just joking, but that's the second fourth villager that's actually lost here. Kushluk also has 3 villagers lost overall, so this villager was actually lost to the wolf and not the opponent's scout in reality. But this is delaying his progress towards Scorpions, and timing is key here with Franks. Like, actually being able to get a couple of Scorpions out early is just so important, because you can sustain knights versus cav archers for long, especially if there is actual support from camos. Apparently random wolves are running around trying to attack villagers as the workshop does go up. The problem now that Kushluk is facing is that he's up against too many cav archers, I believe, and he lost this hill. So the window closed, and me really losing that one villager to the wolf and then losing the second one to the cav archers is going to hurt so much, because now those CA have reasonable numbers, so they can actually outplay on the knights. What you want to do here for Babur is indeed go down hills and then go up, because that way you can use your heal bonus once again. So you run down hills and then run up on the opposing side of the cliff, and that means that you can once again use your heal advantage. In this one, Scorpion is out, but I think that Babur, considering that his opponent doesn't have any monks on the field, Babur could actually make a couple of knights himself, and those knights could pick off the Scorpions as well. We'll have a flanking maneuver over here. Early archer armor, interestingly, from Babur. He already has bloodlines. He doesn't have husbandry, though husbandry would be extremely important. The wolves are slowly trickling in through these walls. When these wolves see the villagers, they actually want to attack them, and the shortest path around is all the way around here. So that's why they're trying to run in this direction, but that just means that the cav archers will pick them off. 3 TCs right now from Kushluk, 3 as well from Babur. So at this very moment, I feel like I'm a little bit more convinced in the Tatar's boom, and more importantly, the late game unit composition. That is what is concerning for the Franks, because the Franks pretty much have to play this one with knights. Frankish skirmishers are kind of potato, especially in Imperial. But what can Franks do against cav archers plus potentially a couple of camels? Because the thing is that Tatars will have their camels to work against the knights, and I'm actually somewhat surprised that we're not seeing more camels here from Babur as a meat shield, sort of. He also needs husbandry really badly over here, because he's getting outrun pretty badly with his cav archers. Something that happened in the High Tide game as well. His cav archers just being absolutely devastated by the knights, and it seemed like after the first 2 games where Kushluk lost, especially the first one, just fell apart in Arabia really badly, he now seems to be sort of having at least a competitive edge in this series. Still, I think the problem that still remains here for Kushluk is that he's not going to have an efficient army against this one, and the more cav archers we have, the better for Babur. Babur will actually have the ability to snipe down that Scorpion over there. The Siege Workshop is so isolated from the rest of the army, with no tools to actually get kills or potentially conversions on knights, they will just snipe down Scorpion after Scorpion. That's going to hurt so badly. There is a couple of monks coming in to kill the knights. They are trying to get the picks. What is this from Babur? Hello? What is this? Is he actually planning to expand his base all the way to this part of the map? That's so awkward. Anyways, there is a Scorpion inside this workshop. Ballistics is not in for Babur yet, but he has a university. Now the Scorpion pops out, but obviously Babur can just run away from this one. Without Ballistics, he's not going to hit a lot here, but he could just get another Knight out and finish off that Scorpion. He also has Sneaky Voyagers moving to the north here, and that's super interesting. I have no idea. Like, who would play like this? This is actually a sneaky mining camp here for him. I would much love a TC from Babur over there for the sake of protecting the Voyagers. Because the mining camp is nice and everything, but I feel like you need a TC there to have a foothold. But I like the idea that he knows that the opponent has a siege workshop here. He's not pushing this. Instead, he's sneaking Voyagers around, and he tries to get a different foothold in the middle. He's also adding a second stable, so we'll see more and more. I think it has to be camels, though. Like, knights won't actually change the outcome of the battle by a massive margin. There's +2 defense on the way for Kushluk's knights, so that's the part where Babur has to start being careful on what fights he's taking. But he now possesses a nice and confident 11 Voyagers lead, 28 versus 31 on food. So Cav Archers could dive in and snipe that monk over there, but they're not doing that, and that means that we could get 1 and 2 knights converted, I believe. The second conversion took quite a while, but the Scorpions are down, and that's once again really bad for Kushluk. That, yeah, he converted 2 knights, but he was essentially trading for Scorpions, the 2 knights. Cav Archers here still missing Ballistics. Actually, no, they have Ballistics now. So they have Ballistics, Tumbling, they have Bloodlines. I think they're still missing Husbandry, though. But they're getting to the critical stage where they actually will start dominating knights. And considering that Babur is actually using gold and wood for his army, he's not really spending a lot on food units. He's gonna have a couple of knights out, but not an awful lot. Because of that, I feel like Babur's Imperial Age isn't necessarily a distant dream. I don't think that he needs Forging here. Like, what would Forging give him? It gives him an advantage at being able to snipe Scorpions a little easier. I think it's actually going to be... Is it actually going to help at all? I'm really unsure why Forging is something that you go for here. Castle denied here for the time being. And Babur is just going to camp down that castle, and now we'll start pushing with rams. The workshop here goes down as well. And it seems like these Voyagers have been killed by a single knight that found that mining camp, if I am not mistaken. So if you take a look at the POV, indeed, Kushluk has found that mining camp, and he was able to kill the Voyagers over there. But what is more important, as I said, is that this castle is denied here. And one of the things that you want to have when you are playing Franks on this map is actually being able to drop cheap castles in the middle and secure the map control with that. I still don't know why Babur is actually going for knights here, when he could just go camels. Like, yeah, the knights are good against siege weapons here, but does it actually give you anything at this stage? Probably not, and you would be better off making camels that actually deal with the knights, so that they're actually a little bit more efficient meat shield in front of your Cav Archers. That being said, the Cav Archers actually moved away for a moment, but just for a brief moment, that castle should not go up. So I think that Babur has everything that he needs to prevent this castle from going up. He's using the market very heavily over here. Look at the army numbers, those 38 compared to just 7 from his opponent. There is going to be 1 for Mangonel pick here, castle at 85%, but that's a lot of Cav Archers with Tumbling and Ballistics, and I feel like that is enough. That is more than enough for Babur to deny that castle, or at least this is going to turn into a proper doubt castle, because 97. I feel like this is gonna be a proper doubt castle, because there's 2 Voyagers inside here that will probably try to finish that. If that castle goes up, I think that this castle may actually go denied from Babur, as here come the Voyagers. The castle is indeed finished, and we'll have to see if this castle goes up from Babur, but I think he's gonna be able to finish it. Right now it's, however, 116 Voyagers against 80, 36 army against 3, and even though Kushluk's food count is looking decent, that he could sell a lot of wood to go into Imperial, I feel like you could even make a case for a petard play here. Look at this, the Mangon is actually right next to the castle, so the castle cannot actually shoot it. And this way he's actually mangoing down this DC. Now the Knights will dive in, but Kushluk just taps out. He knows exactly that this is over. He's got like no army. His only foothold in the middle is at least contested. And even though he could technically think about Imperial Age and trying to get a trap out here and finishing this one off, that doesn't change the fact that he doesn't have an army. And that doesn't change the fact that he lost an awful lot of Voyagers trying to get that castle up. Tatars, I anticipate them to be a better civilization on this map once we get to good Cav numbers, and we were right about that. So after game number 5 over here, Babur takes the lead back in this one. This is extremely hard to guess, to be honest, because I have a very, very limited clue on who these players could be. Both of them are playing standard, but both of them are making some sloppy mistakes. I am still hesitant to say. I think Babur could still be Max, although I'm starting to feel like it could be Lan as well. I'm still going with Max, though. I'm still going with Max. Maybe Max versus Daniel, but this is like a less than 30% confidence. Unfortunately, I don't remember the sets that they have played in the qualifiers. That would help an awful lot if I had even just papers writing down, hey, this player likes to play this civ for this specific map. But I casted so many qualifiers that everything is just so blurry as a memory. With that, we will go into the next game over here, and that is going to be Hideout, which is the final home map of Kushluk over here, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check, but I think it is. Yes, indeed, the final home map of Kushluk is Hideout, and if we get to game number 7, Babur's final home map will be Bypass. With that, we will actually have blue and red colors over here, but for consistency purposes, I'm actually going to switch Babur into teal, because he was teal for the majority of the series. We're going to have Babur playing as a standard Britons on the right side in teal, and left side we're going to have a Kushluk as Khmer in red. Once again, two very, very standard civilizations, as we will have wars, no deletion happening here. We'll just have players keeping the walls open with piggies. So here's the deal. With Britons, you have to be careful about Khmer, because Khmer fast castle could be very, very devastating. Over here, could we see potentially 23 or 24 plus zeros here from the Khmer player? That's definitely a possibility. And maybe Knights forward siege workshop into a castle age push could be huge. Also, it's an interesting debate to talk about. Khmer is sort of a counterpick on this map to Britons, because Britons oftentimes want to capitalize on their early to mid castle age crossbow play, and defending against that with mangonels is always tough because of the range difference. Because the Briton crossbows, that's actually a very decent mining camp over there. So the Briton crossbows outranging mangonels can be troublesome for many civs, but one of the reasons why I'm saying that Khmer is sort of a counterpick to Britons, and we have seen it in many, many cases in last Hidden Cup as well, and other tournaments which featured Hideout 1v1s, is because the Scorpion has the same range as Briton crossbows. So the extra 1 range on the Khmer Scorpion makes it 8, and that means that the Khmer Scorpion is actually able to outrange, or not outrange, but it's gonna have the similar range as the Briton crossbows. For now, it seems like we are gonna have just a boom here. Kushluk is just going for a boom. What is this? 2 TC, yeah, this is a free TC boom over here. I don't really like the fact that he didn't add a single TC on the gold mine, because right now that gold mine could be very, very exposed. I feel like this TC should have been here instead, because it's a great TC on the wood line. The problem is that you already have another TC on the wood line, and you also have a lumber camp here, but this gold mine is dangerously open. It seems to be just a free TC boom, which means that it is in the hands of the British player to punish this one, who is going for stable. This is definitely an arena-esque move, and I am no longer sure if this is Max. In fact, I am fairly certain it is not. But who on the earth? Could this be Dark? Dark could be a sneaky candidate for this. I don't think Dark's macro isn't good enough for this, though, I think. And I also think that Dark would have gone for Islands as his home map, which is not something that we have seen. Babur banned Islands, so I don't think it's Dark. But such a Scouts opening on a map like Hideout is very, very, very reminiscent of Arena. And it makes me wonder if we're actually having a player here that has some Arena experience. And Dark would be the reasonable candidate. I don't think that Max would actually open Scouts on Hideout. It seems like we're actually going to have a free TC boom over here, which once again kind of prompts me to just speed up a little bit so that we actually skip the eco building part. Right now it's for Sim City, but if you take a look at the ecos, the better cast stage time and reaching free TCs faster for Kushluk pays off. He's already 10 Voyagers ahead of his opponent, and that's pure 10 Voyagers. No wheelbarrow on either side, and the TC idle times weren't that big either for Babur, so that's just the power of the Khmer boom to have that advantage in there. We'll see if we see a 4th TC here for Kushluk. That could definitely be a possibility. He's adding Voyagers to Stone. Now he's got 4 on Stone, in fact. A couple of scouts on the field from both sides now, as the players will actually start working towards grabbing some relics. And I think we can soon slow down over here, because we're gonna have TC number 4 coming in here for Babur. Stonewall is the south, so this is definitely one of the more boomy games in here. And that forward Cedric shop, I think this is the moment where we actually slow down. So at this stage, Kushluk has the 4th TC just coming in for him. Here has a 7 Voyagers lead. His opponent is gonna have the TC number 4 up a little bit faster, which means that with good macro, Babur can probably catch up in terms of Voyager count. There is going to be like a 1 or 2 Voyagers deficit at the end of the day. And I think this is just gonna be Scorpions here with the Knights. Knight and Scorpion play could be pretty devastating. Especially Babur is not anticipating this one, and I think Babur doesn't know about this right now, and that's gonna be important. Babur is stonewalling the south, so he's preparing for a long game here with the boom, but he's got no idea about the north. Right now he's sitting on 1 relic, going for relic number 2 here. His opponent is already on 2 relics, and the 3rd one for him is much more easily accessible than it is for Babur. Now it is Babur spotting the siege workshop, so he knows that he's gonna be pushed by Light Cav here. So Light Cav and Knights with Mangonels. The Light Cav obviously is a better choice here from the perspective that you already have a lot of scouts, and you also probably are encountering monks. It looks like it's gonna be pikeman defense from Babur, but the army numbers aren't really convincing here for Babur. Like, he's gonna just start making pikemen, as I think Kushluk just mangoes down his own Light Cav over there. But there is a couple of monks coming in here to heal, and eventually this is going to be a switch into knights here from Kushluk, I believe. Keep in mind that Kushluk doesn't have to be super aggressive here. He doesn't have to do a lot of killing. It's about just being able to apply pressure to the opponent's base as he picks off 1 monk, idles the gold mine, and forces his opponent to tech into pikeman. And behind this one, he can also boom. That's the beautiful thing about this one. He doesn't have to be awfully aggressive, as we're going to see a couple of scouts as well from Babur with the intent to kill the monks. And I'm starting to think about one player for Babur now. It could be Lix. It's an interesting debate, but if you think about the fact that Lix or Babur has banned islands, if Lix is playing standard, he's not necessarily super amazing. So the skill level kind of fits a standard playing Lix here. That's just something that popped into my mind right now. And that would justify the islands ban. We'll see if he's actually Lix, but that is the thought that actually occurred in my mind. But with that, the first barracks goes down very, very easily. And Babur seems to be surprised about this push here a little bit. Khmer Scorpions coming in here with the extra range. And look at those resources for Kushluk. It's not just about this push, as I said. This push has to be efficient, but it doesn't have to be devastating. All this needs to accomplish is just to make sure that there's absolutely no pressure in the base of Kushluk, who's able to boom on 4 TCs with Khmer, possesses now a 16 villagers lead, drops a castle in this critical choke point, even though this castle could have been another hill here as well. I don't like that Kushluk doesn't have any vision on this part of the map, or he hasn't walled this off either. But other than that, I think Kushluk is playing this one really, really smart right now. And we'll have a big push coming out here right now for Babur. Tries to snap down the Scorpions. Mangonels are still there though. And the pikemen are dying pretty easily here. And as I said, you don't have to absolutely annihilate Babur with this. So, as inefficient as this fight was for Kushluk, and he probably wishes that he took a slightly better engagement, although honestly, he ends up saving his Mangonels. There's going to be more pikemen coming out, but I mean, he's still applying a lot of pressure to the opponent's base. But if you look at this, he's going into Imperial and his eco isn't even well balanced. So, it's going to be an Art switch now. Or it could be Elite Skirms as well. I don't think an Art switch would make sense against Britons. Against other civilizations, you could justify that, because Khmer Arbalasts are actually fairly okay. As we'll have TC number 5 and 6 coming in here for Babur. So, the thing is that I feel like for Kushluk, Elite Skirm is a reasonable choice here. You could even make a case for a Ballista Elephant and cut into the opponent's base with like 20 light cap, but the eco is much better for Kushluk. But I think that the main reason why he's leading is that Imperial Age. He's going to send a couple of knights to the other side of the map only to bump into a couple of walls, so apparently he doesn't know about those walls just yet. And it's actually going to be Arblast from Kushluk. Makes sense if you are 100% sure that your opponent isn't going into Imperial himself. That's the condition, so to say. That you need to make sure that you're beating your opponent into Imp by a massive margin, otherwise the Britons will just clap you with their own arbs. Second castle coming in here from Kushluk, and this is gonna be a good old-fashioned trap push now. He doesn't have to have an amazing army, it's just a matter of defending the traps with the castles and then actually pushing out. And taking out buildings with traps. A couple of battering rams will be moving in here, but there isn't really a lot of pikemen to kill the knights. In fact, a bit of a mismicro from Babur will end up losing the ram here, so the second castle goes up, and I think if you are a Kushluk right now, you actually start making traps immediately, because you want to start trapping down buildings ASAP. And Cavalier, Ballistics, he actually wants to tech into a lot of things, and I'm not sure if I actually agree with that or not. I mean, if he can afford it, it's a great idea to have Arbalest. He also tagged into Elite Skirm and Cavalier, but I feel like there could be other priorities as well. Here comes the first chab. You want to start chabbing down buildings. Like, for example, those barracks would be great targets, because that gives a little bit more freedom for your knights to play around. And Siege Workshop comes in here on the other side. We'll have a vision coming in from Babur in the form of an outpost. And you might see a counter raid to the left side. I feel like, as I said, Kushluk is underestimating the raid chance here from Babur, and you see that this villager is probably gonna get picked off. That's an alarm sign for Kushluk. I feel like Kushluk can just, you know, look at this. This is not something you should ever do. You can't just assume that your opponent doesn't know that you're out there. Because if your opponent sends 2 knights here, that's minus 12 villagers. You have nowhere to run. You need at least something here, like a TC or a defensive castle. With that, the Arbalests are now in for Kushluk. Traps already taking down town centers, as now Kushluk will find a castle, but I feel like, yeah, exactly, just start killing buildings, like, big time. There is a couple of Mangonels popping out over here, landing some big shots, as now there is no Arbalest to protect the cavalry from the pikemen. There's still a couple of orbs though, and that should be enough apparently, and Arbalest will destroy Mangonels relatively easily, so that still works out nicely, and it looks like Kushluk will just try to melt these production buildings over here. And nice counter raid coming in here from Babur. As I said, this is a very, very sloppy play from Kushluk over there. He still has a huge lead though, and it seems like Babur is not even close to taking into Arbs. That's the problem that he's facing. That's a nice tower as well from Kushluk. So he realizes that his opponent is chopping here as well. Will deny a bit of a wood. And I think this is the time when Kushluk has to start moving up on that castle. There is going to be Halberdiers on the way for Babur, but at this point you could see Elite Skirms or just Arbs from Kushluk. It looks like another light cap will be spotted here, and they're just chilling here for whatever reason. I don't even know what they're doing. They seem like they're actually patrolling. What is this? This force feels like it's actually on no attack stance patrol, because they didn't attack any villagers whatsoever, but they were definitely patrolling around there. With that, this castle is going to start melting. Here's 4 traps, actually 5 traps. There's no way you save that if you're Babur. He's trying to make his own traps, and the Werewolf traps will definitely help out a lot here, as we'll have Onagers coming in for Babur. So he wants to go like Onager Halberdier, which could still be a devastating unit comp, but there's defensive castle now for Kushluk. He's got a very confident map control. The 5th relic hasn't been picked up by either player, so both of them are sitting at 2, as you see in this column. But I feel like Babur is just losing too much of his own base here. There is Werewolf, but Werewolf will still not save you against 5 times more traps. So the problem here is that you have 1 trap against 5, and even though Werewolf helps immensely, it's not going to be sufficient. Nice cavalry micro over there from Kushluk to pick off the Onagers. Tries to finish off the other one as well. I think that this is the end of this story over here for Babur. I mean, his villager count is still alright, but the Onagers are going down really fast here. A lot of villagers will actually bite the dust, and the 2nd castle is on the way to being destroyed as well. Arbalasts firing up heels against that Onager. Onager gets an okay shot in, but that's not enough. Here, Treb trying to take this blob of traps down, but Babur just taps out. And Kushluk evens it out, and after the first 2 games, it kind of felt like Babur is going to have an easy 4-0 here. It seems like this is going to be a little bit more complicated than that for him. And we have an even series, which actually is nice because we will see the other brand new map, which is Bypass, as the final one. Not sure if I like that Bypass is a decider game though, because as I said, this is basically the first time we're seeing this in competitive Age of Empires. But Babur loses Britons. He's gonna have Teutons and Japanese available for this map, and Khmer is a win for Kushluk. He's got Slavs and Spanish available. I feel like we will end up with a Spanish versus Teutons fight, and we might just see double tower wars. I hope it's not the case, because I feel like there's a lot more potential in Bypass than just pure tower wars. And I actually said that in my map intro video, as we have a Slavs versus Teutons matchup. So in my map intro video, I said that, as you see, here on Bypass, this should be a defendable crossing. And because of that, this is actually a patch where you can't build buildings on. So you can't build on this. I think it's running sand. So there is a place where you can place towers at. So if you want to tower your opponent, you're actually going to... Oh my god, what is this? This is something that was discussed, I think, in regards to this map as well. That sometimes the boars spawn close enough to the wall of the opponent that you could just lay him aboard that way. I think that's the plan here for Babur. No, he just wants to wall in the opponent's gate. Oh man, that's actually a smart idea, because this way you prevent your opponent from moving out completely and pretty much preventing any kind of potential tower rush. And if there is no fights coming in the middle, then this map is just going to end up very similar to Hideout. There is a couple of differences. So for example, you see that there's a lot of hunt and bears on the outside. So we'll see if either of the players will gamble on potentially moving out and hoping that he's not going to get pushed. I can see something like a fast feudal age scouts play into hunt working out better than a fast castle on this map though, because if you have this much hunt to support you and you move out with a couple of scouts just for protection, then you will actually be able to catch up in terms of food eco compared to the player that is fast castling, and your castlage times will be pretty comparable. With that being said, Babur walled off the opponent in the middle, has a lot of idle time on that villager, and we'll have Teutons for him, as I expected, and Slavs for Kushluk. So Slavs pick here is more like the standard hideout-ish selection. We'll see what Kushluk has on his mind. Once again, Dark Age is gonna be something that we will speed through a little bit faster. I was just careful at the beginning to see if there's any villager fights whatsoever, but it doesn't seem to be the case. I feel like Teutons here will think about tower rush though. Both of these civilizations are actually very good with like a halberdier siege push in early Imperial, but I feel like there is enough potential on this map to tower rush, and the thing is that these walls will be extremely important for Babur. Reason why is because if I make a tower here, like I'm Babur, let's say, I make a tower here, Kushluk can pull 6 voyages and take that tower down. But if I wall this off, Kushluk can't actually destroy it with villagers. And that means that I can drop a tower here, and I can pretty much prevent a fast castle. In fact, it would be kind of a suicide if Kushluk went for fast castle. It seems like he is preparing for towers. Maybe Man-at-Arms Towers is the name of the game for him. And on the other side, it looks like Babur is the one that is fast castling. Interesting. Maybe he wanted to keep the Teuton Towers as a possibility, but it seems like he's just going to add walls here behind to, you know, prevent his opponent from getting through with towers. And Kushluk now gonna get through this. I don't think this tower is needed. Why is Kushluk making this tower? I mean, he could be anticipating his opponent trying to repair this, but this is a Dark Age wall. A Dark Age wall with this big travel distance is not something that you can repair. So you see that the wall goes down really fast. In general, that's a concept of competitive Age vampires. If you build walls too far out, you won't have time to get there to repair them in time. And so we're gonna have double layer walls here, but once again, these are very, very weak Dark Age walls, especially the Palisade Gate is super, super weak. Here comes the tower. Now, towering Teutons is usually not necessarily a safe scenario, but considering that Babur just goes for a 25 plus 0 or 25 plus 2 also loom fast castle, this is definitely a possibility. Tries to go for the stone. That stone is actually dangerously exposed. Luckily for Babur, Kushluk will have no idea about this because he can't actually see into the opponent's base. He doesn't know where the key resources are. Nice contingency walls so far from Babur. He's up to Feudal Age, which means that he will now have more HP on those walls. And this is why I think I said this in the map intro video, that fast castle on this map is too big of a gamble. What you have to do on this one is fast feudal into eco and then castle age if you want to do something that's a similar play. Because oh, that's a disaster tower. I think Babur thought that that tower is actually within the range of his walls, so he can actually prevent those villagers walking through, but that wasn't really the case. And right now he doesn't have enough stone for another counter tower, and that means that this tower is gonna go up. He will lose access to the gold. Now, the good news for him is that a tower rush in the middle is slow, and it's probably going to stall out at some point, if you can actually drop defensive towers in a reasonable position. Which means that you can move out to this outside gold mine without any major problems and still have safe gold income. That's always the fun part, so to say, about these spiced up hideout maps, because this is basically hideout spiced up. This is the same thing that we experienced when we implemented the forest pond into the 2 poles map pool. Same thing, if you get pushed from the middle, then you are going to expand to the outside. Nice quick calls over there from Babur. And the same thing is happening over here. Tower is going to be cancelled for now. And I think if you're Babur right now, you could actually delete that house and run down that tower very, very easily. There's an archer range. You know that Teuton archers is not the way to go in the long run. But at this point, you just need something that cleans up those men-at-arms. And once again, I feel like Kushluk's game plan here was slightly better than his opponent's game plan. And I'm gonna have a bold prediction here. Kushluk could be Nili. The more I think about this, the more I'm starting to feel that game plan-wise, Kushluk seems to be a lot more well-prepared than his opponent, and Nili could be a very, very reasonable candidate in this one. Where did Nili end? I'm just going to double check. Wait, Nili can be a player. Because I think Robo said that you had to get to the second round to be a player. Nili would have been a solid guess, I believe, for Kushluk. But I don't think it's actually him. Well, he can't be Nili right now. Because, as I said, Robo specified that it can be any player. Where is that? Anyone who lost in the second or third round of the qualifiers. So Nili is not eligible to play this show match. With that being said, there's going to be a big counter tower coming in here, and it looks like Kushluk's push is actually stalling out here, as I said, especially against Teutons. You just don't tower rush Teutons. I mean, I like the idea, but by the way, I think if you're Babur, now you make a house here. Because if you make a house here, you prevent your opponent from running out. You see that Kushluk will try deleting those walls and run for his life. He kind of has to. It seems like he will not actually pay attention to that, and he will just lose 4 villagers. And that means at the end of the day, Babur has stabilized. But his opponent is on the way to Castle Age while he isn't. Obviously, if Babur looks at his TC and just looks at the fact that he's got 6 villagers queued up, that will definitely help his case here. But Kushluk might actually turn this into sort of a pike and siege push through the middle. The tower here is definitely not going up, but the idle time for Babur is much greater than it is for Kushluk, although Kushluk will permanently be down by 4 villagers, which I think is, at the end of the day, an okay scenario for Babur, although you have to consider that Babur also lost 2 villagers to the man-at-arms opening and the towers here. Still, he reclaims his gold mine, and will be fine for now. He really needs to re-roll this one though, and now start thinking about going up into Castle Age. He might even go for a market. Indeed, here it comes. He has mined some stone, so you could technically think about selling your stone, or you could technically just think about attacking your opponent with a couple of towers here. We'll have a scale plotting and a knight's push coming in here from Kushluk. Only a single stable, he can't really afford a second one, but since he opts to replace that lumber camp, I feel like he doesn't even want to go for double stable knights, and this wants to be like stable knights, siege workshop here, and then Mangonel push through the middle type of scenario. Here comes the first tower, as Babur is going to be lagging behind by more than 2 minutes into Castle Age, and these will be Field Age towers for Babur without fletching, so killing them is actually going to be relatively possible. With a siege workshop, there is a counter tower with 1 villager coming in here from Kushluk, but Babur decides to just bail out of this one upon seeing his opponent reaching Castle Age. There is going to be apparently a sneaky stable here with the siege workshop, but disaster for Kushluk. He's going to be found here by Babur. Indeed, I think Babur was looking for some buildings over there, because if you think about it, Babur could just say, I can defend this one with guard towers in the middle, so it makes more sense to push from the outside with mangonels. The stable does go up, which is an important thing here, because it helps Kushluk, you know, solidify this push from the south. But the siege workshop is denied, which is the important part. That being said, currently Babur doesn't really have an amazing unit composition. He's got 1 range archers with Teutons, and that's not something I'm impressed about, whereas his opponent is going to be double stable knights with 2 TC siege workshop as Slavs. So I feel like if Babur is able to get to stable and get a couple of knights out with the extra melee armor and the conversion resistance, so knights and monks from both players would definitely favor the Teuton player over here, and that's exactly what Babur has to go for. We'll need to re-roll this one to buy himself some time. He's almost into Castle Age here. Also goes for a couple of spearmen, which I like at this point. Will help out quite immensely, defending as the early knights. And we are gonna have probably a couple of knights. There is no opening over there because there's a stone wall preventing that. And you see that he's preparing for the night war because he's going for scale botting first and not for the defense upgrade. Spearman will be dispatched to take down this ram that was sent to kill that tower. And the gate actually was open for a moment. Babur could have actually thought about maybe trying to keep that gate open with the Spearman, but doesn't have any military to follow this one up with. 7 villagers lead for Babur though. Interesting. How is this even 7 villagers for Babur? I don't really know. Because he's supposed to be up by 3 based on villager KD. Add 2 more because of these saddle time. That's 5. Oh, wheelbarrow. That's how. Okay, that's fine. It looks like a knight is going to pick off the mangonel over here, and that's a huge loss for Kushluk. Kushluk tries to break into the opponent's base once again. Nice quick walls from Babur, and now Babur is gonna have his own knights out, and really the extra melee armor here, free versus right now it's free as well, but it will be more for Babur if he's actually getting the actual defense upgrades for the stable units. You see that he's without scareboarding. His opponent does have scareboarding, and they still have the same melee armor, but Babur already has forging, so the only thing that's missing for those knights is actually bloodlines, but that is missing really badly. So it is for Kushluk. We're gonna have a monastery though, and the Teutons is actually a very good civilization overall for this map, exactly because of this one. because this Knight and Monk push could be pretty devastating. Whereas Slavs, what will they even do against this? I mean, they can go for their own Monks, but conversion against Teutons is always a troublesome thing. And what is Babur up to? Is he planning to go for a forward siege workshop here? Like, he's definitely intending to destroy those walls. Makes me wonder if he wants to build a building over there. We have 4 on stone now for Kushluk, 2 on stone still for Babur, so neither of the players are actually close to the castle. One of the ways that you could actually stall out a push in the middle would be with a defensive castle, as the Monk jumps into the tower, Mangonels pop out, actually connect, but unable to finish off the Mangonel, and the Knights now finish off the first Mangonel. Teuton Knights just so hard to convert, and you see that there was 0 conversions. The Mangonels are still alive, although one of them is low HP, and the tower could easily finish that off. But now there is archers, now there is spearmen, and even though this is somewhat inefficient engagement over here, suddenly Babur is taking over in that case, and since the tower doesn't have anyone garrisoned inside other than a monk, this tower is gonna go down really fast. Knights will now start rampaging the eco of Kushluk. The monk will be evacuated from the tower. A little bit sloppy from Babur losing that Mangan, although he brought in repair voyagers, but that didn't actually work out for him. He will be adding TC number 2 right now, whereas his opponent is on 3 TCs already. But the eco is still in the favor of Babur overall, even though he's lacking wheelbarrow. So with that, right now he's focusing on that siege workshop, and he's going down really fast over here, dropping a couple of outposts to make sure that he's able to see what his opponent is trying to react. Here another siege workshop comes in, so he's not going to completely neglect his eco, but he's gonna go for a pretty aggressive castle age push over here. Remember, there is a lot of space for Kushluk to expand to, and that's something to keep in mind, that Kushluk has TCs over here, but Kushluk could go as far as this position and this position out here, because he's not getting pushed in that direction. And that's the beautiful thing about this map. This is one of, I think this is the best of the new maps, and I like the versatility that it's bringing in over there. Monk's trying to get a conversion in, as the spearmen are actually helping out quite a lot here. It's +1/+1 on them, and now it's +2 defense, because Teuton spearmen also get the extra defense in melee combat, and that helps quite immensely, obviously, here for Babur as well. And even though his opponent is on 3 TCs, his opponent isn't really able to afford getting a lot of voyagers out, because there is only 12 on food. A lot of idle time on the farmers, and also Kushluk is forced to make a lot of defensive knights over here. He's having a tough time getting conversions in, obviously, because he's up against the Teuton player. And we got a couple of more voyagers coming in here. Still only 2 on stone for Babur, though. I feel like he could... Mangonel popped out, kill the monk. So you could technically think about maybe trying to add a couple more voyagers on stone and getting a castle up in the face of the opponent over here. I like Kushluk's reaction, though. Moving out to the outside. This is definitely one of those maps where finishing off your opponent is insanely hard. And I'm fairly certain that this map in many cases will go into late game because of this. Because you have a kind of slow pushing army over here in the middle, but there's so much space to expand to, and it's not like these places are barren of resources. In fact, so much food, so much gold, stone. This is actually a very good TC on the right side here for Kushluk. He can send the voyagers out to hunt and get a good food eco going for him, so that he's able to consistently produce voyagers on his TCs. Knights will now dive in to try and snipe the Mangonel, will be successful at doing so. Currently, these knights have 3 melee armor, no attack upgrades, whereas on the other side it's 4 melee armor, 1 attack upgrade. So Babur's knights are much better. They're also more resistant to conversion. They're supported by spearmen, rams, and mangonels. And now I feel like the problem that Kushluk will soon start facing is that he is just not going to be able to expand to the sides as fast as his opponent is actually pushing in. There's the defensive castle, as Kushluk bought himself some to kind of stall this push out. But you have to ask the question if this actually stalls out the push, because I think the TC here will go down regardless. This is not a cast that you can stop. Babur might actually try picking off a couple of voyagers, and yeah, the castle does go up. It's not even a proper doubt castle. That was a late recognition from Babur, and he lost his mangonels to the castle fire, so you gotta ask the question if this was a good idea from Babur. I think he overcommitted trying to stop that castle. He should have just acknowledged that it goes up by the time he spots it. He lost a lot of knights to castle fire. He lost a lot of mangonels and potentially pikemen to castle fire as well over here. Still, I mean, he's in this game. He's actually having a 6 vultures lead and he's pushing the opponent from the middle. And he could very well be pushing this direction. But I feel like that defensive castle was essential for Kushluk over there. So, with that, we're gonna have a free TC standing for Kushluk right now. Free TC as well for Babur, who is dropping TC number 4. But I like the position. Believe it or not, I like the position of Kushluk a lot more, despite the fact that he's behind by 1.4k score. Because I feel like this push will not really go anywhere further. Whereas, if you take a look at Kushluk, he's gonna have all the map control on the outside. And Babur is committing a lot to this push, and it's not really achieving an awful lot. And that's going to start having its effects in the long run, in the form of Kushluk starting to be able to outboom his opponent. He's just going for +2 defense. Wood control is a bit of an issue here for Kushluk, something that we haven't talked about though. Losing the middle means that you don't really have a reliable wood income. He's still able to chop some wood over here, but he has to move to another wood line like that. Now the Mangonel comes in here to try and take a shot on the town centers, and that's definitely the way to go for Babur. He needs to start pushing these sides. We also have a forward workshop over here from Kushluk, so we might see a push coming in here. But right now the problem that Kushluk is having is that he doesn't really have the army or the counterattack potential or anything basically in this one. I mean, his eco is alright, but he's behind by 16 villagers. That's something that you can still survive with Slavic farming, so that's not really the big deal. I can see that eco actually being okay, especially considering his wheelbarrow and his opponent does not. The bigger problem is that he doesn't have army on the field, and that's starting to be a bigger and bigger problem right now. As now it's pikes, now it is knights as well coming in, and as I said, we'll get back to a stage where I think Kushluk is going to start losing buildings faster than he can replace them. And now you see that Babur is actually moving up with forward stables. He knows exactly that his opponent could expand to those sides as well. And the question is, how is he going to deal with that castle? Both players have pretty low villager count on food, which is somewhat surprising for these players. It looks like we have a Mangonel push coming in here from Kushluk, and that's going to force a lot of idle time on Babur's villagers. Stable on the way, as it looks like Kushluk is heavy on stone, wants another TC over here. Interesting decision. I feel like defensive castle is the name of the game right now for him. Obviously, it requires a lot more stone, but TCs won't actually stop a ram, pikeman, Mangonel push like this one. And we could soon see this force here from Kushluk getting sandwiched in between two sides of attack from Babur. Babur will be able to pick off a couple of villagers over here before that TC goes up. But I think that TC should go up. It's gonna be tight. If you focus down the villagers, yeah, it goes up. But basically, all the villagers died, making that, and now it's a 30 villagers lead for Kushluk, even though he's got, or for Babur, even though he's having quite a lot of idle time on these villagers. The knight will come in and snipe that Mangonel without any problems, and that's actually very, very sloppy from Babur. He gets some ground attacks over there, but 4 Mangonels could be lost to the knights. I'm not sure what he was paying attention to, but that's a disaster move from Babur. Losing 4 Mangonels. There's the forward castle with 2 villagers, a little bit ballsy. So Babur is not really playing this one super clean, to be honest. I mean, it's 1 battering ram and 1 knight. He's throwing away his entire army. As, look at this, he's trying to limit the opponent's movement in this direction. Now sends more villagers to get that castle up. If that castle goes up, it's fine. I think it's gonna go up with that many villagers being sent. But the ram could be taken down here. If the villagers actually grace on DC and focus down the knights, they would have been able to clean up the knights and then finish off the ram. It looks like the Mangonel, not Mangonel, but the knights diving in was finish off the ram. But the castle now is up for Babur. He can jump inside, he can finish off the first TC over here, he can get a siege workshop up and push this TC here. And I feel like the problem that Kushluk is facing is that he's just going nowhere in this game. He's defending, slowly getting pushed, but he's unable to carve out an eco lead for himself. He's unable to obtain a better map position for himself, so to say. There's just nothing that is going in his direction at all. There's going to be 1 knight lonely in his raid coming in to counterattack Babur, but I think that 46 villagers killed compared to 8 speaks for itself, and Babur is actually closer and closer to winning this game over here, and with that winning the entire set. once again, the player identities will be revealed after this show match here. And now it's 79 vouchers only. There's the Siege Workshop coming in as well. And Babur is now actually getting close to Imperial Age. And that, I think, if this is him, Babur will probably go for Halberdier, drop a castle here and trap this one down, or he could just go Cavalier himself. Both works out fine. He clicks up right now to Imperial. He will keep pushing this TC with the Mangonel. But I feel like, as I said, this game is just seems like it's not going nowhere for Kushluk. Because he's unable to do any damage to Babur, whereas he's slowly but taking damage. So it's not like Babur is destroying him right now. It's more about the fact that he's slowly grinding him down, town center by town center. And really, Kushluk is forced to relocate so frequently. He has to invest a lot of resources into rebuilding what he has lost. Whereas, I think the main problem for Kushluk is that Babur is not taking any damage, basically. With that, the TC will be garrisoned over here, 2-turn TC, so it can actually fit in 25 Voyagers, helps quite a lot as well when it comes to defending your Voyagers against raids like that. A Lonely Ram comes in here to push this one. I'm not sure what's the plan with that for Babur, because Kushluk could just take 2 Voyagers to destroy it, but Kushluk apparently is too busy fighting elsewhere. Probably the Monk Micro is what he's looking at right now, but that means, okay, now he's going to go back here, take down the Ram. A couple of Voyagers will once again fall to this Knight, but I feel like this is probably going to be named GG here by Kushluk, because, as I said, this game is just going nowhere for him. Random TC coming up here on the south, and eventually this TC is gonna go down at latest by a trap, and you're just gonna see Cavalier, I believe, from Babur. He's got just 2 stables right now on the field. More barracks though on the way, so we could see increased amounts of pikemen, potentially even a halberdier tech over here. This is actually a reasonable fight for Kushluk. He's got knight numbers to edge out the victory in this one. The problem that he's facing is that now those pikemen, first of all, they will get 1 more melee armor in Imperial Age, so they're even more resistant to the knights attacking them. And as I said, this right side is about to fall. Even the Teutonic Knight was in the party over there. You could see the cape of that guy in the shadows. As indeed it's Halberdier and just defense upgrades. You could make a case for the attack upgrade here first, but I don't think it's really necessary. And I could also think that indeed Babur can just keep adding knights here, because those knights will now have 6 melee armor, so they're actually extremely tanky compared to the opponent's knights. And I feel like now that this TC is going down, the Voyagers will have to do a mass migration. Kushluk was waiting for that, or Babur was waiting for that with the knights. As Kushluk has kind of nowhere to go, he's gonna be down to like 80 villagers or so with no Imperial Age, whereas his opponent is a fully boomed 2-turn player in Imperial. Indeed, Kushluk taps out, and with that, Babur edges out the victory. It started out very, very easy for him. Ended up a little bit sloppier. Kushluk, on the other hand, had a rougher start, did some nice comebacks, but at the end of the day, Kushluk was never leading in this series. If you take a look at this, he was down 2-0, went up to 2-2, then once again he fell behind 3-2, evened it out for 3-3, and then lost the decider game on bypass. With that, let's think over who these players could be. And then I will actually tell you the official results. I don't know the results myself, and it's actually very, very hard to guess. So I am going with Max for Babur, but this is a very, very weak guess. And I'm going with Daniel for Kushluk. But I am really, really unsure about these. And with that, first, let's take a look at what the players guessed. Babur guessed that he's up against Slam. It is possible, it's very possible. I was considering Slam as well for Kushluk. Remember the good English, the slang that he was using is something that needs to be considered. And Kushluk guessed the Rubenstock. As I said, I had Rubenstock on my mind at some point, but I was never convinced enough to say it's Ruben stock. And here are the results. Babur was Daniel. So I was right about Daniel, but I didn't know it is Babur. Interesting. I thought Kushluk was Daniel and not Babur. And Kushluk was Miguel. Aha. I never really thought about Miguel, I'm not going to lie here. And I'm not even sure how, like, you see that Babur guessed Slam. So he himself, Daniel himself, didn't know he was up against Miguel. He guessed Slam. And I feel like Slam is a more legitimate guess. Obviously, I was like Daniel or Slam. That was my two ideas, and I was like 80% sure it was Daniel. But one thing I didn't know is that Babur was Daniel and not Kushluk. I thought Kushluk was Daniel and Babur was potentially Max. It seemed like it was Daniel versus Miguel once again. So Babur was Daniel, which was a pretty outstanding gameplay from Daniel, I have to say though. Especially the first two games were very, very good from him. I had some feelings that, as I said, when he started being a little sloppier in game number 3 and game number 4, that this might not necessarily be a top 16 player, but the first two games really was like a top 16 performance from me, and that's why I was surprised a little bit that he's Daniel. Kushluk Miguel, I feel like I can see Miguel playing like this indeed. Fairly standard player, nothing flashy. Good all around, but a little bit rusty still. And with that, Kushluk versus Babur. This is the end of this second show match. I don't think there's going to be more show matches like that with Hidden Identities. So the next Hidden Cup content that you will probably be receiving here on YouTube is going to be the main event of Hidden Cup, which starts on the 18th of March. I will also be live streaming those on Twitch as well. But in case you are unable to watch it over there or just want to watch YouTube, I will upload them on the same day they were casted. Obviously, that's going to be late in the evening / night for Europeans and evenings / early night for the Americans in terms of time frames. But thank you so much once again for watching. And as I said, we'll see each other probably during the main event of Hidden Cup.